everyone, and welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. Happy Friday. My name's Candace. I am here doing live readings on the channel. I'm so excited that you guys are able to hang out with me on a Friday night. If you guys can see this, make sure you give me a thumbs up and drop me a comment in the live chat. I'm coming to you guys live on July 31st, Friday. So if you guys are watching me on Saturday or Sunday, sorry I missed you, and I hope to catch you guys next week. This is the last Friday for my Friday lives for the month of July. So if you guys are a level 4 membership and you want to get in and you want to get your reading for the month, definitely let me know. I know we've got plenty of people who are already in the queue, and we've also got some people who have joined membership. So what's up, Frankie? Thanks for joining level 4. I've got you in for your reading. And also Sharon Grant's going to be cashing in. It looks like Ariana and Mana, you guys also joined other levels, level 1 and level 3. So welcome, guys. All right, well, here's how it works if this is your first time here. I'm going to be pulling cards live in real time and doing readings for you guys. If you want to get a reading, scan the QR code right up here. That's going to take you to my PayPal. When you get to the PayPal, you can send a little brief memo about your question. I'm going to be answering one question per reading, and you have your choice of a single card pull for $20, or we are doing a 3-card pull for $45. Now, I just want to let you guys know, for those of you guys who are members, I don't know if you have recently seen my post to my community tab, but we're kind of making some changes with some of the live readings. We are only going to be doing tarot on the live readings on Fridays now. We're not going to be doing astrology anymore. We have also changed the prices for some things. So if you are already in a level 4 membership, that's not going to change. That's going to stay. But you will be able to come on one of the 4, I guess in some months there's going to be 5 Fridays, and decide if you want to get your reading that's included in your membership, but it will be tarot only. And for those of you guys who are level 4, you're still going to get the horoscope club. You guys are still going to get early access to videos. You're going to get your shout outs. And for everybody else who is wanting to get readings, we are going to be charging $20 for 1 card and $45 for a 3-card reading. So that has changed a little bit. I appreciate your guys' patience and understanding just with all of the astrology readings and everything. It was just getting to be a lot, and I really did not want to kind of jeopardize people getting good readings. So if you're somebody who wants to still get some of my predictions, make sure you guys are subscribed on the channel. Click the bell button below so you can see more of my videos. If you are a level 4 member, I have a brand new webinar out that you guys get for free. You can watch my August 2026 eclipses, where I talk about the solar eclipse in Leo, the lunar eclipse in Pisces. And if you decide that you want to join today and you want to get your reading, you can also kind of check out that webinar. It's over 2 hours long, and it is jam-packed with all kinds of ritual recommendations. I do predictions for the 12 signs. I also talk about why these eclipses are so significant, and they actually kind of unfold over time. Lots of activations that we're going to see later this year. So definitely check it out for a member, or I guess level 4 membership. If not, you guys can click the links below and you can head over to my website at beyondtheveiltarot.com and you guys can pick that up. Is PayPal the only way to pay? No, so we take PayPal, but we also take Super Chat. So thanks, Rosie. I just saw you kind of pop in there. I appreciate it. I'll add you to my list. And let me get into letting you guys know who I have. So if this is your first time getting a reading, you guys will hear me kind of call out some names. We are going to take our level 4 members first. So Sharon Grant and Frankie and Rosie, you guys are going to be first. And then I also have people like Brenna, Kayla, Christina, Vanessa, Jenna, and Alana. So if you guys are on my list, awesome. You know, watch for your name, and then I'll be doing the readings in real time. And you guys can always scan the QR code up there if you want to get in the queue. We are going to leave the queue open for about 10 minutes. So if you guys want to get in there, you can. And then we will call last call just as kind of like a heads up before we close the openings for readings. Okay. All right. So Rosie's here. You're welcome. They may come back at some point. There's probably going to be a lot of changes that's going to be happening in the channel over the next couple of months, but I appreciate you guys continuing to support. What's up, Amanda? I will add you to my list. Let me see here. I do have you having cashed in on week 2 of July. So if you want to buy a reading, Amanda, you're welcome to do that. But I already have you on my list, having gotten a reading earlier in the month. So just let me know. And we're gonna get started with Sharon and then Frankie and then Rosie. So let me go ahead and pop over and see what their questions were. What's up, Sharon? Sharon says, I would like to use my monthly reading, would love to know what the cards have to say. New boss, lots of changes, but loving life. Well, that's great. I love to hear that. Let's take a look and see what we can tell you about what you need to know. Changes with your bosses, changes all around, but good changes is what it sounds like. And August is definitely a month of change with all those eclipses. So let's see what we can tell Sharon about some insight on some of this change. Is it good? Is it bad? And is there more to come? We have got the Knight of Cups, the Seven of Swords, the Three of Swords. Interesting that the way that the reading kind of opens up with like the Knight of Cups is you embracing change and being like, I'm loving it. These are good changes. It's positive. And I would say, even though that is your perspective and that's how you're approaching this, to me, it seems like you're choosing to have this perspective because it actually could be some difficult changes. And I don't know if that's just about you adapting to like having new, kind of like leadership at work, if this is about you trying to let go of fear of when things change. And really it's your mindset and how you're kind of navigating this that I think is going to be very, very, very important. Now, I don't say some of this stuff to sound like doom and gloom, Debbie Downer. And obviously remind me, like, what is your rising and your sun sign? Because I'm kind of curious why there are such kind of intense cards that are coming up. So with the Knight of Cups, it means that you have an open heart. You're approaching some of these changes in a positive manner. You're emotionally receptive to change. You're listening to your gut. You're listening to your intuition. You're not allowing yourself to feel like easily swayed by, oh my God, this is the end of the world type of stuff, right? Now, the current card that you're getting in the right now position is the Seven of Swords. So this means like, don't count your chickens before they hatch. And I'm not saying this to kind of throw you off your positivity game, but the Seven of Swords can mean that there are some circumstances that are going to be unfolding that's going to make you either second guess or kind of question whether or not you can trust what's actually unfolding, right? So, you might meet the new boss, you're like, this is great, it's gonna be wonderful. And then it's like a record scratch moment, and you're like, wait a second, do they know what they're doing? Are they, directing us in the right direction? Like, are they capable to kind of lead? Like, there can be some questioning of status and anything that's kind of connected to security and trust, okay? So that's like a big one. So maybe, part of the way that you're approaching some of these changes in your life right now is about being like, okay, I could let fear run the show and I could maybe not have, a sense of like positivity and optimism and glasses half full kind of mentality. And if I let that get the best of me, then I'm setting myself up for, Three of Swords situations where there's disappointment, there's heartbreak, whatever. Part of me kind of feels like that Knight of Cups is very similar to like the Fool card, and sometimes when the Fool card, when I see a water kind of royal coming up in the first position, I would be like, this is like ignorance sometimes is bliss, right? Or sometimes it could mean that you're so kind of receptive and kind of emotionally open that you're like, everything's going to be great. Everything's going to be fine. And I would be like, ooh, girl, protect your energy, protect your heart space. Be mindful that not everything that you see right now is going to be what's going to still be standing probably in the next couple of weeks. And like, I feel with the Three of Swords coming up as the final card, that this can symbolize where you're like, okay, I trusted something, or, I gave somebody the benefit of the doubt, or I assumed it was actually going to be a good change. And then boom, I kind of, need to guard my heart a little bit, or I kind of got caught in a situation where, I got hurt or I've been disappointed. And I'm just always going to tell it to you like it is. If these cards are coming up, these are two of the more challenging cards that we see. And I just have this feeling that there can be a sense of you, I think, trying to approach some of these changes and being open, but I would say being so open to the fact that you're just like, okay, all the change is good. Like that can almost in a way make you, kind of feel vulnerable, or make you kind of get hurt, or potentially put you in a position where you're like, okay, I don't really know if I want to trust again, or whoa, this is like too much change that's happening at one time. So one step at a time, especially as these changes are going to be kind of coming up through the better part of like the next month or so.
I would say, you know, we've got a 7 and we've got a 3. So probably the better part of like the next 2 months is when you're going to see most of this change. Also, part of this can be like that kind of forecasting or that intuition that comes from the Knight of Cups, where you're getting a reading, you're trying to get a vibe on what's going to be changing, what's going to be evolving, and like that you're tapping into that there could potentially be some emotionally treacherous, you know, situations. And these are both, you know, within the House of Swords. So it can be things that people are saying, things that people are kind of telling you, information that you're getting that is not necessarily true, or it's not necessarily factual or honest. So this can represent a lot of you being like, okay, I'm going to give everybody a chance, but I'm going to constantly be checking in with myself going like, how does that land? Does that seem like something, you know, that is honest or kind of truthful or accurate? And it's trying to kind of like prevent you from just kind of giving everybody, you know, carte blanche sense of like acceptance and just kind of assuming that everybody means well. Keep your cards close to your chest, kind of pun intended, and obviously be very mindful of where there can be some issues where people are either being deceptive or you're not kind of seeing the fuller picture, right? So yeah, like I said, very curious to see what your rising sign would be, because that'll kind of tell me where some of your transits are kind of happening, and it would make a little bit more sense. But let me know in the comments, and I'm very curious to see what happens in this next month. Hopefully you're able to avoid some of those kind of pitfalls that come up with those 2 cards. All right, so we've got some people who are still popping in. What's up? Do I ask a question? Do I see what comes up? Angela, what level are you? We're doing a 1-card reading, or we're doing a 3-card reading. It's usually just a couple minutes long. Depends on what your question is and how many cards that you guys have. Let me add in Angela. So she's popping in after Rosie. All right, and then let's see. We've got Frankie. What's up, Frankie? Welcome to level 3. Frankie says, hi, Candace. Hope you're doing well. I went on a vacation trip several weeks ago to New Orleans to a conference for a week. While I was there, I had the guts to introduce myself to someone who I thought was really cute. His name is Fu. It was awkward at first, and I thought I made a fool out of myself because he looked at me dumbfounded. But afterwards, during the conference, he started hanging out with my group of people who are guys that I was hanging out with, which made him be surrounded by me. I thought it was weird because I thought he wanted nothing to do with me after our first interaction of meeting each other. He knows that I'm attracted to him. Every time he would have conversations with me in the group, he would look at me too and include me. I don't know, maybe I'm just delusional, but I just wondered what he thinks of me and his energy from the tarot cards. I'm going to the next conference next year. Maybe that will be better next time. All right, Frankie, well, let's take a look and let's see what's up with you in Fu. Did you have fun being in New Orleans? That's one of my favorite cities. Did you stay uptown or did you stay kind of downtown? Hey, Angela, so we only do the free readings for level 4 memberships. If you want to upgrade your membership, you can. Otherwise, you're welcome to scan the QR code and then you can get a reading. And if you sent a payment to the PayPal, just let me know and I'll make sure that I put you in the queue. Thanks, Lauren. Appreciate you. All right, so this is for Frankie. Let's see what's the deal with you and Fu. Is there interest there? Were they freaked out by you? Is there a connection? I've got the Fool card, the Ace of Wands, and the Ace of Swords. I really like these cards. I feel like it's interesting because it's not immediately screaming like romance, love story off the bat, but it is kind of suggesting that there is like a storyline that is building, and especially an opportunity for you guys to reconnect and the potential for, you know, a new beginning between the two of you guys that I think is going to be about this initial spark, obviously the Ace of Wands, and then developing into a little bit more of a back and forth and like a communication. And I would wonder, did you guys exchange information? So did you give them an emails or phone calls or anything like that? Because that Ace of Swords at the end of this spread can suggest that there's probably going to be some communication even before, you know, you end up kind of connecting or seeing this person again. Okay. So first things first is you have the Fool card, and in some of the decks, you know, this is the card that represents the very beginning. So it's kind of initiating something new. It's a major arcana card. So it's only one of 22, and usually when this card comes up, it is symbolizing something very significant, some big new energy that's coming in. So you see like the Fool standing there with the dog. There is this sense of feeling like companionship, connection, you know, launching into the unknown, taking a risk, taking a chance. So I think that's very kind of a beautiful reflection of what you were saying. You were like, I took a chance, I put myself out there, I was talking to him. It was this, you know, kind of new connection, and I was like in this new place, and I was traveling. That's very much the Fool. And like building this kind of like solid bond with another person. So I like that card. I feel like this is saying like it's the very beginning of, I think, what maybe a couple different like meetups or hangouts, and like this should probably continue. The right now card that you get is the Ace of Wands. And so what's interesting is that even though the Fool card is a major arcana, to me it has that energy of an ace. It's about like initiating some new energy and like kind of taking a chance. So it's a lot of like new beginnings. It's both of you guys doing things that you would never typically do when it comes to, you know, traveling, meeting people, dating, all that stuff. And the Ace of Wands is about that instant chemistry. It's about a spark, you know, that's like really drawing that person in and like really feeling very attracted to that person. It's kind of like striking a match, right? So the very beginning kind of instinctual, oh, I got to gravitate towards that person, like a moth to a flame type of vibe. And that there was maybe some potential outside force or even something within you that kind of like possessed you to want to connect with this person. And so I also feel like what's interesting is that it does bring up qualities in you, but also in him or them that to me seems like it's very out of their character. It's like, I don't usually do this. I don't usually put myself out like this. I don't typically, you know, kind of get outside of my comfort zone or maybe approach individuals who I don't know. And to me, it seems like it's wonderful. Like this is an energy that is initiating, and it's basically saying like you can keep that fire burning, like that connection can be there. So I think there was a connection. You're not crazy. I think there was definitely chemistry there. But what really started to develop the connection was the Ace of Swords. Now, for you to pull 2 aces in one spread when there's only 4 total is kind of significant. It can mean that over the better part of like the next 6 months that there's room for another connection and opportunity for you guys to reconnect and communicate. Now, the Ace of Swords is a different element. It's not fiery and feisty like the Wands. This is more about intellect, knowledge, communication, anything that involves kind of relaying a little bit of like a back and forth. So think like emails, text messages, forums, things online that might connect you guys, that might be connected to this event. And I feel like with the Ace of Swords coming up, that's usually initiatory. So it's like initiating, hey, you know, it was nice meeting you. Like, what's going on? Like, you know, how are you doing since you got back? Or, hey, are you going to be going next year? Or let's stay in touch. There's something that connects you guys. There aren't cups coming up, you know, so I'm not seeing the elements of romance and relationship and commitment. This is more kind of saying it was a lucky connection. You were drawn to each other. There was an instant spark. It looks like there is some sense of this person being even more so attracted to the way that you think, the way that you communicate, how you express yourself, your intellect, the way that you were kind of connecting with other people within the group. And that is what really kind of drew them in. So I don't think that it was like one-sided. And I also feel like this is probably not the only opportunity you're going to get to connect with them. I would pay attention because this is talking about the element of fire. So it's talking about what's been kind of going on in the summer, and it leads to the fall. So pretty much any time, I would say, basically, you know, July through more or less, let's say, like Libra season. Okay. So those months is the time where you guys are most likely to be the most connected. And maybe you're going to see some communication as you're getting into the fall, or next year when we get into Aquarius season. So when the sun is going through air signs, Libra is going to be like September, October. You know, we're going to see Aquarius is going to be January, February, and then May, June is going to be Gemini. Under one of those periods, it looks like there's going to be a little bit of back and forth about a reconnection. And to me, it looks like it's the beginning of what could be a really awesome friendship, potentially turn love story. So it's kind of cool to see that they're still interested in communicating with you. So I hope you guys were able to exchange information. All right, readings are now closed. So those of you guys who got in, thank you. Just as a reminder, we're still working through our level 4 memberships. So we just spoke for Frankie, and we're going to be doing Rosie and Angela. And I just want to do an overview of who I have because I know a lot of people are going to be asking. So I've got Jenna, Alana, Rachel, Adriana, Amanda, Yolette, Kimberly, Amanda again, Kim, Lauren, Silk, Kim again, Camille, and Brianna. So those were the kind of second batch of people who came through. So if you hear your name, then you made the cut. Otherwise, I will see you guys here next week. I love that, Frankie. I especially think about if you're a Libra rising, that Mars, which rules your 7th house, is going to be going into Leo. You're going to see that later in the fall. And when it goes into Leo, it's going to come into conjunction with the South Node. So there can be a sense of reconnecting with a group of people that could bring on another opportunity for partnership, especially like in a social setting, in a group setting. And the South Node is the past, right? And Jupiter is going to represent travel. So I would stay super connected with these people to see if something pops up again in November. And then you'll see it happen another time. I think it's going to be the end of March, and then it's going to be closer to like June or July that Mars and Jupiter are going to be meeting. So, you know, are they a part of a professional association, a network? Are there other networking events? Are there going to be other travel events? That kind of stuff is what you want to watch for. Yes, we've got Kim Hung. All right. We're going to take now Rosie and then Angela. What's up, Rosie? Rosie says, hi, extra level 4 for July messages from the ancestors. What can I do more or less of? And what can I do to settle them? All right, let's take a look. I feel like I've heard a lot of that from like people who have like Cancer risings or people who have like Pisces risings because they have so much like 12th house energy, Taurus risings too. What can I do to appease the ancestors? But let's ask, what should Rosie be focusing on? Something more, something less? What is going to help kind of balance things out here for her? Okay, Rosie, you get the 8 of Swords, 10 of Coins, and the Magician. I always laugh because, you know, it's like, you know, those who are on the other side, whether it's like your guides, your ancestors, you know, whatever it is that you believe in, like they always want to help you with 2 things. They want to help you with love and they want to help you with money. Okay. Some may argue they want to also help you focus on health, right? But I really kind of feel like with the 8 of Swords coming up, there may be some situations right now where you're like, help, I'm stuck. It's almost like this weird inertia where you want to move forward, but also you're kind of being pulled back. So it has this almost like hangman kind of vibe where you feel like you're suspended and you can't do anything. The difference is this is a minor arcana card, right? So if you look at the card, you see the woman blindfolded, she's standing in the water, surrounded by what? Emotions, fear, you know, trying to tap into her intuition, but she feels stuck. The swords are kind of wrapped around her. And in the traditional Rider-Waite, her eyes are blindfolded, but her hands are free. So it symbolizes that we have free will, that maybe we're finding a hard time connecting. Maybe there is a sense of us doubting our vision. Maybe we're having anxiety, we're having worry, or we can't see our way out of a situation. We're like, please, universe, help us. I don't know which way to go. But what's cool about this is like the 2 cards that you got are quite positive because you're sending out those psychic SOS calls where you're like, I don't know what direction to go in. Give me some feedback. I need some help. And the 10 of Pentacles is basically saying it's granting you, what it's bringing you, right, is leisure. It's bringing you stability. It's bringing you better health. It's bringing you more money. It's bringing you stability. Quality is something that I think about with the 10 of Coins because this is about generational, you know, money, resources. And when the 10 of Coins comes up, it can mean that there is some good financial news on the horizon. Maybe you're mastering something, finally paying something off, feeling like you're finally getting your worth. There can be some recognition that's going on for you in a professional way and a pretty significant pivot. And then the final card that you get is the Magician card. So this is basically saying life is what you make it. You know, it's your choice. If you're really feeling stuck and if you're in a situation where you don't believe that these things are coming in, then you have the opportunity to shift it, and that energetically, whatever is kind of working up there for you is trying to help bring what's going on above down below. It's trying to help you materialize some of that stuff and believe that you can see some of the physical and tangible, manifestations, better health, job kind of change or movement, seeing that there could be some financial abundance that's on the way. I do feel like it may be a good idea with the Magician card coming up to like set up an altar space. And I don't know if that's something you believe in, like in some kind of spiritual practice and stuff, we think of like, having the altar where there's the 4 elements, right? And I say that because that's what the Magician has. He's got the wands for creativity and kind of calling down energy and manifestation. He's got the cups for emotion and also like healing and things that are more psychic. He's got the pentacles to keep grounded, to kind of, bring in that earthy need. And also he's got the sword to be able to kind of, really kind of direct his intellect, his information, his knowledge. So if you have an altar, I would say do something that is abundance related. And with the 10 of coins, like you see like 2 older people, like to me, this would be like grandparents or great grandparents. And they're sitting around the fountain, which represents this kind of eternal emotional connection. Water is the one element that is consistent in our world and also in the spirit world. So having water there, maybe putting out drinks or food or things that your ancestors may have liked, and like literally giving offerings to specific people and like not getting cheap with it. Like the 10 of coins is like, you're going to spend money on the nice coffee. You're going to buy a decent cigar. You're going to give them a nicely dressed candle, or you're going to put out, some fine perfume or something for like grandma, like that kind of stuff. And what you're putting out is going to be a manifestation of what it is that you're actually bringing in, because as above, so below. And so I don't think that it's more that they're asking for physical, tangible things. They're trying to get you to kind of work with that element of being in and being out and not feeling like you're stuck, and seeing that when you put something out with intention and you're kind of ritualizing it, that it can actually materialize and it can grow. So I would probably do something like that that's going to be abundance related. And then obviously the Magician card is also saying you have the ability to create change. You can see some pretty significant shifts once you're going to kind of giving them the kind of clearance to be able to intervene and kind of help you with some of these changes. But you're not doing too much. If anything, you're needing to kind of open the gates a little bit more to be better connected with them and let them intervene and kind of help show you where things are kind of meant to go. So wonderful. It kind of feels like you're coming out of a period of riding blind in terms of spiritual guidance, and that there's about to be a significant shift, and they're going to step in, especially when it comes to, well, work and money. So great reading for you. Sun in Leo, Moon in Cap rising. I feel like they're waving a flag at me, but I'm like a bimbo. Yeah, so from like the Pisces sun perspective, I could definitely see that. And that's like interesting that you've got all the Leo stuff that's kind of going on too, like the Leo moon with like the eclipses. Definitely family related. Last time I asked this, I got a plant on your guidance, and she's very pretty. Oh, and what did you say? Bromelaid. That's cool. I don't know what kind of a plant or flower that is, but I'll look it up. Let me know what happens. It looks like you got people who want to help you. They just want to help you see that you can do it yourself. All right, we've got Angela. Let's see. So let's see what Angela has to say. Or did I already read for her? Let's see. Sharon, super chat. Where's Angela? Oh, there she is. All right. Angela, 1 card. Do I ask a question or do I see what the cards come up? Okay. So I've been looking for a new job for what seems like forever. Have had plenty of interviews. Had one today even. Aquarius rising and moon, Pisces sun. Okay, so let's take a look what you need to know about work. Thank you for your reading. You're welcome, Rosie. All right, Angela. Aquarius rising and sun. Certainly I would feel like for the Aquarius rising, it's been a little difficult like the last 2 months or so with the Mercury retrograde, like in the 6th house, and like it was squaring Saturn, so it's kind of like a mental block revolving around work. But what can we tell Angela about this work situation? Okay, that's a great card. The card that I got for you is the Ace of Cups, okay, which is usually a relationship card. It's a partnership card. Sure, it can talk about a new relationship, love on the horizon, yada, yada. But in regards to your question, I see this more as like an offer is coming your way, right? The Ace of Cups is saying, here, do you want this? And it's kind of handing you something. And the chalice kind of represents something that is about emotional growth, connection, relationships, partnerships. This would be one of the cards that I feel like would come up for a job offer, right? Maybe you would get that for Ace of Coins. Maybe you'd get that for 9 of Coins, for 10 of Coins, you know, 2 of Cups maybe. But this would still be one of them. She says, I've had a lot of dates lately, haha. Okay, so it could be picking up on that energy that people are just more so receptive to you right now. But really, I think the key with the Ace of Cups is like, and maybe this is just me, when I think about Aquarius rising charts, I think about Cancer being in the 6th house and that you want to do work that feels soulful, or you want to do work that feels emotionally fulfilling. It's not going to make you depressed. It's not going to stress you out. It's not going to make you feel like you're really anxious or you're worried. It's not going to allow you to fall out of sync with your emotional needs or your home needs or your family needs, right? And like Aquarius risings are going to have quite a few cycles of change and just in regards to their careers this year. Another one is going to be during a water month. So you're going to notice during Scorpio season, Mercury is going to go retrograde, Venus is going to go retrograde. You're going to see that in your 10th house of career. So this is more about you, I think the last 2 months, maybe feeling like there was a bit of a stall or a funk and you're like, does anybody even want to hire me? Like, am I employable? Like, do people like me? You know, am I wanted? And I feel like you should be getting some really positive feedback. There is a possibility that you can be getting an offer with this card. But keep in mind that this is still a water card. So it can be saying that there can still be things that are changeable all the way up until we're getting to the next water season, Scorpio season, which is going to be the end of October, kind of into November. And there is definitely going to be a little bit of like a back and forth that you're going to do with work. But I do foresee this being a period where I think you're going to have a breakthrough. And I think you're finally going to have a little bit of like emotional relief and feel good about the fact that not only are you wanted, but maybe you feel like you're working with better people, or you're kind of getting into a kind of flow where you're doing work that feels more meaningful or more kind of in alignment for you. So wonderful card to get. All right, we are now going to move on to the queue. So we're going to take everybody else who's been waiting. So thanks, guys. And let me kind of update this. So I've got everybody on my list. You're welcome. Definitely come back and let me know what happens. All right, Rachel, Adriana, Amanda, Yolette, Kimberly. All right, so we're going to start with, let's see, who do we have first? Brianna C. And then Kayla and Christina and Vanessa, you guys are all on deck. And Christina M, if you haven't already sent me your question, can you send that to me? And I think there was one other person. Was there another person? No, it was just you. So Christina M, if you can send that in the chat. The live, since eclipse season is upon us, my question is for the tarot, what do I need to know for the month of August 2026? I'm a Scorpio Sun, Virgo Moon, Gemini Rising. All right, well, let's take a look. Well, you know, if you're a Gemini Rising, then you're going to have the first eclipse in Leo, which is going to be hanging out in your 3rd house. So short distance trips, communication, contracts, new ways of thinking, changes with vehicles. And then it's the 2nd eclipse at the end of August that's going to be a little wild from immutable risings because you're going to have, you know, Pisces eclipse, the final Pisces eclipse in your 10th house, which is about, well, how you're changing in regards to your career. It's going to square Uranus. So, and what's interesting is Jupiter, you know, is tied to both of these eclipses because it's in Leo for the solar eclipse and it's ruled by Pisces, you know, for the lunar eclipse. So they're both very intertwined, even though they don't make a direct aspect to each other. All right, so let's take a look. What can we tell Brianna in regards to eclipse season? What does she need to know? Wonderful card. Basically, the Lover's card is the card that you get, and that's the card for Gemini, so I think it's kind of speaking to you directly. The one thing that I think about for Gemini risings is that where their whole trajectory of their career and their status, be that professional or romantic, is really going to open up if they can find their voice. If they can tell people what they think, who they are, what they believe in, if they can start sharing what's on their mind, their ideas, that's where they're really going to see like the magic happen. I also think that for you, the Lovers card might mean that this represents, especially with the solar eclipse in Leo, because it's in the 3rd house, so it's very familiar in a way, like for a Gemini, because it has that kind of mercurial kind of options like energy, that what's coming up for you is like a secondary path, right? So like when I think about a South Node eclipse in the 3rd, it would be something like, I always, learned how to do something this way, or I've always, kind of read or believed or been told, or maybe you've always listened to a certain media, or maybe you've always read a certain author, maybe you've always kind of had a similar, kind of car. And now with the South Node eclipse, it's like you being like, well, what if I don't have to drive that way? What if I don't have to think that way? What if I, change something about my media or, the authors that I'm kind of reading or what I'm learning? And so it represents, because it's a solar eclipse, an event that's going to happen, that's going to get us out of the past, South Node, and we have to detach from an old way of 3rd house thinking or communicating to bring something new in, okay? Also, for you and for Sag risings, because Mercury, which will be in Leo, Jupiter will be in Leo, are very close together, it can represent, if you're traveling, it can be very good energy for you basically when it comes to, sorry guys, I'm looking at the chat, for relationships, okay? So you have the opportunity to see some positive relationship things that can kind of happen. Give me 1 second, guys. I think we're having some issues with the overhead camera, so I might have to hold them up for you guys. It's been kind of touchy lately. Anyway, to stay on topic, I would say there are different options and kind of paths that are opening up for you now. And I would say stay curious, be open. Yes, there can be opportunities for romance and relationships and meeting people, just because that's what this card could represent. This is also a card that sometimes deals with like temptation and feeling kind of pulled in one direction. And I would say if you stay open-minded, and that could be in regards to relationships, that could be career, that could be anything that's kind of connected to, ways that you communicate, ways that you travel and get around town, that kind of stuff. And obviously, I think what I love about the Lovers card is it's talking about taking an alternative path. And when I think about like the South Node and the eclipse in the 3rd house, it's like learning a new direction, learning a new way to kind of drive, or a new commute, or like a new way of kind of getting around. So there's going to be something like that that's going to be kind of happening for you. And hopefully there's some kind of romantic connection that's going to be happening there as well. So hopefully that's helpful for you, Brianna. Really, really great reading for Geminis and Gemini risings, obviously. All right, we are going to be moving to Kayla, and then we'll have Christina and Vanessa, and this is Kayla A. And Kayla says, hi, I'm a Taurus sun, Libra moon, Taurus rising. I have a verbal offer for a contract role with some travel. I'm also being considered for a remote role of a different company. Not sure the direction I should go in. I'm offered both. If I'm offered both roles, maybe I do both. One is contract. Wow, that's very like Uranus in your 2nd house, like unexpectedly having 2 different kind of like financial offers, and you're like, what do I do? All right, so we've got a verbal offer. So nothing is, like it's on the table, but it's not like guaranteed. And you're being considered for a remote role for a different company, and you're not sure which one you should kind of go in if you're offered both. Okay, so let's take a look because you asked for a 3-card spread. So I'm going to pull a card for you. And I'm going to put one if you, first of all, what does it look like? And then one if you were to offer the remote, and one if you were to be offered the, travel job. So let's see what we can see overall for Kayla for just the job stuff. Okay, so the card that I got for you guys is the Magician. So this is a really wonderful card because it's saying the situation is still like malleable in some way. Like there has been no defined decision yet. Like it could still go one of several different ways, and things are still up in the air and things are still being kind of determined. So that can mean that they're still looking at other people. You're still keeping an open mind. You haven't completely settled on any one particular position yet. You don't have your heart set on any one thing. You're like, hey, let's see what happens. So that's a good way to kind of approach this. Now, if you were to take the role that is going to be the contract role with some travel, okay, the card that I got for you is the 3 of Wands. Great card. It's basically saying so far, this is likely going to be the role that you're probably going to be offered, because when you're dealing with the Three of Wands, the Three of Wands represents, okay, the Ace initiates it, which would probably be the interview. The Two is like you guys exploring it and being like, okay, I could do this or I could do that. The Three of Wands represents, okay, so they may already be considering you as a candidate. They may be coming forward and basically being like, we want to offer you this position. Do you want to take it? And honestly, the Three of Wands is fun because not only does it mean travel, but it's also about exploring and like going and, you know, doing things that are kind of different and it's unconventional and there isn't like this set standard kind of schedule, and that it's really about exploring and kind of like, you know, having independence. And you know, the woman standing there and she's got a wand and she's got a globe in her hand. So it represents being able to work and be creative, the wand, but also being able to kind of explore and have some fun in the process. So this one already to me looks like a very strong contender. That's also an energy of being like, you know, it's a 3. Can I juggle things? Can I do more than one thing at once? Okay, and for the remote position, I get the Knight of Wands. Which is interesting. So I'm wondering, or I'm kind of feeling like, have you already had experience doing remote work? Okay, have you done this? Because the Knight of Wands can mean that, you know, you're like, been there, done that. I've already kind of had a schedule like that. It's been something that has been pretty familiar with me. I could, you know, do it in my sleep. And this may be why you're kind of saying to yourself, oh, maybe I could consider doing both, because that may not be stimulating enough for you. This is a card that wants stimulation. It wants fast pace. It wants excitement. And like, maybe, you know, there are some aspects of it that you enjoy, but I could definitely see why you're contemplating being like, I can do both. The feeling that I get with both of these cards coming up together with the Knight of Wands and the Three of Wands is that the Knight of Wands can get quite adventurous. Like there can be a sense of him trying to take on too much at one time, and like, he can burn out really quickly. So I feel like if this were me, if you were to get offered the kind of remote position where you're staying home and you're doing that job, I could see you being like, I'm going to take this, you know, and if I get offered the other job, I'm 100% going to take the travel job too, and I'm going to juggle both. And I feel like it would be too much. But what I think is most likely to happen is that you're going to actually get contacted probably for the traveling role. And they're going to be like, do you want to do this? They're going to give you the lowdown. They're going to tell you exactly, you know, what kind of travel it's going to be expected of you, where you're going to be going, what you're going to be doing. And I think when you get the full kind of like, you know, idea of what the position is going to require of you, you're going to be like, oh yeah, no, I don't think that's a good idea to have like the remote role, because like being able to do both at the same time is too much. So wait until you hear back from both of them. To be honest with you, both of them look very positive, but right now I would say the Three of Wands, so this would be the travel position, looks a little bit more pertinent. And I also feel like even if this is something that you decide that you don't want to do or you can't do, you can easily kind of fall back into the remote position. And this looks like something that like you have the skills and the capabilities of being able to do. I just feel like you would get restless. Like I feel like you would be bored. So my vote would be, if you get offered both, that you actually take the travel, you kind of leave the remote position on the side so you can fully immerse yourself in that travel kind of contract job, and not overwhelm yourself, and also take away from your free time that you may potentially have while you're on the road. Regardless, you do have a lot of amazing things that are kind of manifesting right now, and it's really saying it's up to you what intentions you're setting and what directions you're hoping to go in. Send the universe a clear sign or a clear direction of which one you want. And not that there's anything wrong with you being like, I could do both, but I think that may be stalling or delaying you getting a response. Maybe I would sit down and kind of think about it a little bit and be like, okay, universe, this is the position I want, send it my way, just to kind of expedite the process. But like once things get going, I think they're, well, really going to get going. So hopefully that's helpful for you. Oh, what's up, Sharon? All right, well then it makes sense, because I was kind of like, you can't totally assume that everything's gonna be like all good to go. There's gonna be a sense of you needing to be a little bit more cautious so you don't get your hopes up, but I'm glad to hear that that resonated with you. All right, we have got next up Christina, and then we've got Vanessa, and then we've got Jenna. And did we hear from Christina? Christina? Let's see. All right, well, I did not see Christina's comment. Thanks, Lizzie. I just saw your comment. I appreciate you. All right, let's give Christina a blind reading. So, Christina M, this is for you. What does Christina need to know? What does the universe want her to be aware of? All right, we've got the 10 of coins. I'm not going to get mad that this card has come up a couple times. I welcome that card. Christina, this can mean that there are some big professional career status related things that are happening right now. I would say with the 10 of coins, maybe taking a look at what's going on with your 10th house ruler, your 10th house, what's happening there. Is there eclipses aspecting that? Is there some long-term goals that are coming into fruition? 10 of coins is like you are finally starting to see success after, years of being in a position, or months of trying to, launch a business, or, years of trying to slowly and steadily stack and invest and be cautious and conservative. And now you're starting to feel like you're having a financial breakthrough, or you're preparing for retirement, like that kind of stuff. So when this card comes up, it's basically saying there's a completion of a cycle that's happening right now, and everything is coming full circle, and it's supposed to be bringing you better health, better financial security, stability, recognition. It's also about your status. So sometimes this can be about your professional status as much as your relationship status, and where some of your goals are finally coming to fruition when it comes to like finding your place in society. So sometimes this is like where people are like, yeah, I'm settling into, a new position in my company, or I'm settling into, a relationship, and like now we're really like making some headway and we've got some long-term plans. I also just have this feeling, because this card is kind of coming up, that it may be tied to some of like the transits we're going to see in the next week. We're going to see the sun going through Leo, which is going to be obviously with Jupiter. So personal pride, joy, abundance, creativity, fulfillment, trining Saturn. So I think a lot of people are going to see, actually, even though like the eclipses are shaking everything up in the month of August, if people are willing to be brave and they're willing to really stick to their guns when it comes to their long-term plans, and they see them through and they don't get kind of shaken out, then come the end of August, it can actually be a really wonderful time where we start to see a lot of personal expansion and like fulfillment, and we can also see some abundance that's kind of coming through. This is more earthly though, so it's going to be more money, health, finances. It can also be talking about like making some long-term serious decisions for family planning, or things that are connected to like estates, wills, anything that deals with like property, or like parents, grandparents, and in a positive way. Sometimes this is a card that also talks about inheritance, or something that's being kind of given to you or passed down to you. And that this can be very beneficial, because it seems like it's something not only are you supposed to be awarded at this time, whether it's money or recognition, but also it's going to be like much needed. Like it's going to help you kind of further some of your goals, and also feel like maybe you don't have to work as hard, or that finally you're getting a little bit of a break or a reprieve, and you're finally feeling like supported, rather than feeling like you have to be constantly, working against the grain. So wonderful card for you. Wonder how that kind of applies, but definitely let me know. All right, we have got Vanessa, and then after that we've got Jenna and Alana and Rachel. All right, Vanessa, I got your love note. So Vanessa's gonna get a couple different cards. We've got 6 questions here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 1 card for each one. That seems to be like the one that makes the most sense. And Vanessa says, my daughter took off with her boyfriend after I tried correcting her demeanor with her boyfriend on the couch, and she's currently staying with her school friend's family that lives a block away from her boyfriend's house. All right, so question 1 is, are my daughter, the Cap Sun, Aquarius Moon, and her boyfriend, Cap Sun, doing the deed, and is this going to be a long-term relationship? Or do I see them long-term? All right, so we've got you, your daughter's boyfriend, and her now living down the street. So are they doing the deed, and does it look like this is going to be a long-term thing? Sometimes the tarot is just so ridiculously sassy, it's not even funny. So come on. I mean, I feel like with the 10 of coins, I'm going to be really honest with you. And like maybe, maybe it could mean that there is a lot of back and forth and exchange and things that they're talking about in terms of that. But like if there was a card that's like, oh, long term, is it long term? The 10 of coins would be that. It's possible that there can be this sense of being like, oh, we're in this together forever. Like, and obviously they're like, what, 16, 17, years old. So I think, and when everybody's that age, they're always going to kind of think that, especially when they're with their first love. But with all respect to that, the 10 of coins is a card that's like, that's pretty solid. And there is a sense of really strong, kind of commitment and like togetherness. You have to remember she's like a Cap rising, right? So, she's having eclipses on her moon, which we'll get into in the next question. So yes, there can be some concerns for pregnancy, right? That is possible when you're having eclipses in your moon sign. But she has the moon that's the ruler of her 7th house. So a lot of what's going to be kind of coming up is like when she has a stable home, because the North Node is like inching towards her moon and she's got something that she can call her own, relationships become solidified. So whether that's living at a friend's house, right, Aquarius moon, or eventually if she ends up living with a boyfriend or boyfriend's family, or if she ends up moving in some capacity, like those home changes will solidify her relationship. So she's not just leaving her home because she wants to do what she wants to do. Her astrology speaks to the fact that when she leaves her home or there's a change in her home, Aquarius, she's rebelling against it, she will have a change in a relationship and a relationship can become solidified. And like the cards are kind of confirming like this may be a thing for a while. So unless you see a planet that's retrograding or eclipsing on her moon, which is not going to be until February, so it may be the beginning of the next year is when you want to watch to see if there's relational changes. But for right now, it seems pretty solid. Question 2 is, do I see her getting pregnant in the next year? Pregnancy is a difficult thing to predict. You would want to look at the eclipses to the moon, the ruler of her 5th house, which would be her Venus, her progression. So you'd really have to get into it. But we're going to ask the cards, is it possible in the foreseeable future that we see there being a pregnancy with her daughter in the next year? That makes me feel a little bit better. 7 of Cups. I don't think that it is... I don't think she's intentionally trying to have a pregnancy, but I'm going to be honest with you. I also think with this card, she's also not necessarily being cautious to prevent it. The 7 of Cups is just kind of like everything's thrown up in the air. I'm like, honestly, this can be a card that's about not being all there. So I see this sometimes come up when like teenagers are being teenagers and they're like, oh, we're going to have a couple of beers and we're going to hook up, or like we're going to smoke weed, we're going to hook up. So there is this sense of not maybe being totally acutely aware of the fact that it is possible. And I don't think her mind is going there. So she's not somewhere basically being like, oh, this is what I want to do, or this is what I'm trying to do. I think it's very out of sight, out of mind. But with that being said, there is still some concern as to whether or not she's paying attention and making sure that she is doing something preventatively. There are no cards that are coming up definitively saying that she's going to have a kid, though. So I guess that does help. Third question is, how long do I see your daughter living with this family, being friends with their daughter, and why is she so enamored with this family? Is she being influenced to cut ties? Okay. So I think it's the Aquarius moon nature. That's part of what's going on. And like when Saturn and Neptune's in the 4th house, she's trying to find her own, her own living situation on her own terms, like without her mom. That's part of the nature of the transit. So what's the deal with this family? Are they influencing her? And do I see her living there long? Well, there's influence from the mother, okay? Perhaps because the Empress is like a woman who's very generous and she's like warm, and this is somebody who's about like nurturing and kind of like femininity. And this is not me saying you don't have those things, but like this could almost be like the mom that's like, I'm the cool mom, or like, she lets her daughter do more than maybe you would, or maybe she's a little bit more lenient or willing to kind of overlook things because she's just like, well, girls will be girls or teenagers will be teenagers. So The influence to me seems like it's coming more from a mother figure or a woman figure, you know, and like this is not coming up as a page, so I don't think it's your daughter's friend. I think it's actually coming from the mom. It's like, look, if you need, you know, a place to be for a bit, you can be here. With that being said, like the Empress does kind of rule over the kingdom, so whatever she says goes. And I feel like if she has the kind of frame of mind that's like, well, you can stay here, you don't have to leave, like you don't have to listen to her, then yeah, then she is influencing her, but not in a way that's like directly malicious. Yeah, I do see her being active. I think the 10 of Coins is just saying like they're together and they're just like, oh, we're going to be together forever. And like there definitely is like a central aspect to the Pentacles. So there is a physical connection. But really, I feel like this is more about her being connected to the mom, and that the mom, I think, is kind of creating some issues, and like whatever the mom says goes. So if your daughter's going over there and she's like, well, this is all my mom's doing this and my mom's doing that, and like she's getting one perspective, and that mom may have her own issues or her own hangups with having been a teenager and her mom, and so she might kind of like be triggered in a way, and it's like, well, you know, I don't make my daughter do these things, and like if you need a place to be, like I understand you can be here. So the problem is actually coming from the mom. It's not going to be your daughter. It's not necessarily, you know, her friend. Maybe your daughter playing into the fact that, you know, her mom has more generous kind of nature. But what's interesting is that I also simultaneously don't see this as a situation where the mom's trying to convince her to cut ties with you. They may just feel like, hey, we don't want the drama at our house, or if you're going to be here, you can be here, but like we don't want any of that bleeding over here. And if you don't want to talk to her, then this is a safe place for you to be. And so the mom has made that decision that's like, you don't have to, and therefore we won't either, which is not right. Your daughter's still a minor, you know, that's still your kid, but whatever. But by the same token, I don't think that she's in her ear basically being like, well, you should never talk to your mom again, because she's a mother, right? And it's also kind of suggesting that maybe she's giving her that space where she's like, okay, you know, like this isn't my kid, but I'm gonna like watch out for her and kind of look over and make sure that she's not doing anything, and, you know, keep an eye on her, because I would want, you know, somebody to do that with my daughter. So I don't think she's like totally running rampant over there. Like I do think she's going to school, doing the things that she needs to do, and I think that there is like a sense of structure. And I do think that she may be kind of suggesting like, hey, you know, like that still is your mom, and at some point, you know, you should talk to her. So I don't think it's like totally negative Nancy over there. If I give you a timeline on how you should approach the situation or leave it alone, cold turkey, try reaching out to her, etc. I feel as if she's going to hang on to the fact that I told her to leave over my head. Will she ever come back and apologize? P.S. I have no male family or friends to help me mediate the situation. I haven't spoken to her dad in 3.5 years. Okay. All right. Yeah, she adores the mom. Yeah, it's partially like the mom, and the mom's kind of going along with it. But so let's take a look. What advice could we give Vanessa on the situation? Like, does she leave her alone, cold turkey? Does she try to reach out to her? And is she gonna hold some grudges over things that were said? Does it look like she may come back and apologize? Here's the deal. I feel like with the 9 of Coins coming up, it's interesting because it was almost like, and I understand what you said when you told her like, okay, go, you know, it was more you kind of being like, if you want to be an adult and you want to go and do your own thing, go do it. And I get where that's coming from. I don't think that was you saying that you wanted to kind of be with her. So 9 of Coins, sorry, I keep forgetting I don't have the overhead. But this is about like strong, independent woman, right? Doing her own thing, being self-sufficient, going her own way. Like in a way, she's living there and she has a roof over her head and maybe she has some security, but like that's not going to be a forever thing. Like she's still going to have to be responsible for school. She's still going to have to eventually get a job. She's still going to have to provide for herself. This is just kind of like a halfway point. So the 9 of Coins is saying like, you have to let her do this on her own. It doesn't mean that you're abandoning her. It doesn't mean you don't care. This actually, in my opinion, this card means that you care a lot and that you have actually really tried. Like it almost feels like you've tried everything in the book to connect with her, to talk to a therapist, to try to reason with her, to fight with her, to let her go. And it's just like, there's literally no other option at this point but to be like, okay, I'm going to let you do your own thing. And interestingly enough, the 9 of Coins is somebody who thrives when she ends up going off and doing her own thing. Like she may have to kind of have like the school of hard knocks. And I know from your questions, I can tell that you're like, she left the house, she's with the boyfriend, you know, I don't know who's overseeing her, you know, I'm worried she's going to get pregnant. These are all very reasonable concerns that you have, but she may have to figure this out on her own. And I think that maybe right now there's some security because she's still going to school and she's living, you know, in somebody else's house scot-free. But things are going to dramatically change after this point. And the Nine of Coins is like, how does she figure out how to feed herself, clothe herself, provide for herself? You know, it is going to get real and she's going to have to grow up, and it's going to teach her how to be independent, how to be successful. And unfortunately, and maybe it's just me, but I feel like we see a lot of this with like mother to daughter like relationships, right? So just to kind of give you like feedback, you know, that Nine of Coins means that it may be a while before she comes back. You may not see her return, you know, for months. It could be, you know, in the fall. You know, this talks a lot about the 9th month of the year. So this is like September, October, when you start to see some of those changes. So is it that when she's, you know, getting ready to go into her next year of school that she's potentially having to go and like come back and get settled? Yeah, maybe. It could be, you know, kind of closer to September, October that you're starting to see those changes, but she's going to have to make her own way, right? And I don't see her living there permanently. I see it almost as being a bridge before she decides whether or not she's going to come back, or she's going to have to get serious about like how she's going to provide for herself and be able to kind of make it on her own. I think that question number 5, where you say, should I make her pay for half of her school tuition costs for this up and coming senior year, or would that push her away even more and make matters worse? Okay, so let's take a look and let's see. So that's a tricky question. I would say certainly with the North Node going through her second house, because she's a Capricorn rising, she's going to be noticing that everything is going to be about her for the next year and a half, having to work harder to make her own way. And like planets will go into the 8th house and conjunct the South Node, which means like she could qualify for sponsorship. She could qualify for support. I mean, if you're not supporting her, if she can't do it on her own, and that there will be intermittent periods of people saying, okay, I'm cutting off some kind of support because of like the South Node connection with Jupiter, especially involving education or anything that's going to be connected to like, you know, consistency with work. I think that would be like another one that would kind of come up. So let's ask the cards, should you have her pay for half of her tuition, or should she do it? I mean, 6 of Wands comes up. I mean, to me, that feels like if you're looking for a small victory, and if you were to say to her, look, I want to make sure that you finish your, your education, you get your high school degree. I want to see you be successful. I don't want to see this be a situation where, you're not going. This would be a really obvious win for both of you guys. And I feel like, me personally, like, you don't need a tarot card to tell you that. I know it's a difficult situation. I know you've given a lot to her. I know you've done a lot and there's been a lot of tension, but like, you don't want to see your kid come this far. And because you guys aren't seeing eye to eye, and because she's a difficult teenager and she has reason to be like, oh, well, because you're not going to pay for it, I'm just not going to do it. And I'm just going to like, kind of just fuck off and go and hang out with my boyfriend. No, like you don't spend 18 years seeing your child get to that point only for them to like not pass the finish line, right? So I recommend doing that because I do feel like it's about ensuring her success, and it's also going to be about you getting that win and being like, look, I don't want bad things for you. I want to see you succeed and I want to see you do well. That may actually kind of help the relationship in some capacity. Even if you think she expects it, try to look above that and kind of focus more on her being able to finish her education. She said, you said something in the last reading that sparked some concern, where you see me having some issues with the landlord or the neighbors behind me in the near future or next year. I'm exhausted and I don't want to move all over again. Okay, well, let's take a look. Is there any reason to be concerned about the neighbors? Is there anything that may potentially be coming up in the near future or next year about moving? So you got the Knight of Cups, okay? So this is saying right now, it's like smoothing over some of the relational harmony with people who are kind of like either in your units or maybe, you know, in your apartments or kind of like condos or duplexes because you live in like a multiple unit space. The Knight of Cups is saying like there's good emotional rapport. There isn't any drama right now. Nobody is seeking any problems. There's no issues with, you know, people wanting to confront people or wanting to create any drama. Like to me, it looks fine. What I brought up to you and what you have probably noticed throughout the last 2 years is you have had eclipses that have been in Virgo, right? The South Node, where you had a lot of issues with your old neighbors and you moved, right? So it's pretty common when you see those eclipses. What will happen, because Mars is going to be directly tied to authority figures, it could be about landlords, it could be about property managers, it could be about people who are in charge, and how they're dealing with, you know, people who are having younger kids in the units or people who are having parties or whatever, because it's connected to the 5th house. That will retrograde from your 3rd house back into your 2nd house. So there can be debates that can come up with neighbors in regards to expenses, bills, you know, kind of talking about, you know, what things are costing for the various units, which you have already brought up. So it's kind of like interesting, like you may see another resurgence of that. It's also possible that something connecting to like the Mars retrograde is also about somebody moving back home. And just before that, in the fall this year, you'll see like Venus and Mercury retrograde from your 5th to your 4th. So that could mean your daughter's coming back home, you know? And then there's some discussion about kind of being like, oh, you know, like your landlord's like, oh, is your daughter back? And you're like, yeah, you know, and maybe then there's changes going on with like your utilities and then they're like asking questions. Something like that could happen. So I think it may just come down to communication, but this card is basically saying to me, there's nobody who's intending on creating any harm. Things right now look really stable. Relationships look like they're improving and I don't really see any problems. So hopefully that's helpful for you. And even if she told you that she would pay for her tuition, that's like very 9 of coins. It's like, I can do it on my own, you know? I would be like, cool, see if she can do it. And maybe she does, but you still have the option or the opportunity to decide if you want to go ahead and circumvent that, right? Like you have the ability to basically be like, I can either Venmo her the money and she can do what she wants with it, or you could say, you know, I'm going to go ahead and write a check and send it to the school and maybe decide that you're going to pay for half of it or you're going to pay for all of it. And then when she goes to pay it, they're going to be like, hey, you only owe X amount of money. Like you can do those things if you decide to do it. It's wonderful to see if she can do it because she's walking the walk and talking the talk. If she's, you know, leaving, you know, the home and showing you that she's going to be independent, I think that's great. But I would still hope that, you know, in your good nature, you would still want to see her kind of be successful. So hopefully that's helpful. To be honest with you, the cards are a lot better than you would think with some of the questions that you're asking. And even though I know you're kind of iffy about this relationship with her and her boyfriend, there's a possibility that she may come back in the fall. And there's also a possibility that things kind of get rocked a little bit in relationship land. I would say like February of 2027. And then you're going to see that again in like June and July of 2027 based off of her chart. So hopefully that's helpful in giving you that insight. All right, we have got, so let's see, who's next? Pull up my handy dandy list here. For Kathleen, you sent after the window was closed, so I'm gonna have to send you your donation back. I'm sorry, but we did close the readings. All right, so we're gonna move on. We've got Jenna, Alana, and Rachel. You guys are all on deck. What's up, Jenna? The month be for what? Thought you were asking. So if there's gonna be changes with like your neighbors, you're gonna see that like January to April. And then if there's gonna be changes with your daughter coming home, you're gonna see that like October to November. Okay. Let's see. All right, so let me stay on task here so that way I can make sure I get everybody. So Jenna says, you did a reading about 2 weeks ago and gave me some information on a man coming into my life. Virgo rising, Pisces moon, Leo sun. Will this man actually come into my life, and can you give me a month? Like, is it next year? Where do you think I'll meet him online? Okay. Virgo rising, Pisces moon, Leo sun. All right, so I'm gonna ask the cards, is this person actually coming in, timing, and location? So is this person actually coming in for Jenna, the timing, and the location? Okay, so see if this works. We might have a new camera. Is this person actually coming in? I mean, we've got the Chariot card. So the Chariot card is super positive. It basically means, yes, it's happening. It's going to be taking place. That person is on their way. What's interesting is that this is about reading the stars and the intuition and some of the cycles and the themes that are kind of coming up, so you know exactly where and when, and it's about listening to your intuition and your gut. This can also be highlighting the sign that is connected to Cancer, okay? So that could be like a Cancer sun, a moon, a rising maybe. It could also be anything that is kind of connected to traveling or trips, moves, relocation. So that could be something else that could be kind of popping up. And then when you were asking about more information in regards to timing, like a month, okay? Honestly, it's saying that this energy started in the Cancer season, but I also think about, just as like a Virgo rising chart, you're going to have an eclipse at the end of next month, right? So it's right after Cancer season that has already initiated something that somebody can come in. So I would be really keeping an eye on what's going to be happening for you, literally, you know, like in the next month. Now that you have, you know, the timing coming up, the Nine of Pentacles is funny because it's kind of saying to you, like, pump the brakes. There is a need for you to really be complete and whole and ready and in a place of having a relationship, because you're not needing a relationship, but because you want one, right? Because you're ready for one, because you're 100%, you're complete, not because you rely on somebody. This can also be talking about that you will see some significant shifts that are going to be happening with you, either financially with your job or with something connected to your self-esteem and your security. I will tell you, like, as a Virgo rising, Jupiter rules your 7th, right? And now Jupiter is going to be going into your natal 12th house. So how are you likely to meet somebody? Jupiter is connecting to the High Priestess card. Private spaces, meditation spaces, going to church, as crazy as it sounds, going to spiritual places, traveling, going to foreign lands, maybe meeting people connected to hospitals or sacred sites or healing centers. Especially Leo, I kind of feel like, you know, do you decide that you want to try to meet somebody who's a foreigner? Do you decide that you want to go and try to kind of go and meet other artists or people who are creative, like at night? The High Priestess card is saying that, you know, you're intuitively maybe going to be dreaming about somebody before you meet them, before you connect with them. And Jupiter is going to be in the 12th house for like a whole year. You're going to see Jupiter like meeting with the South Node in November, which could be a turning point for meeting somebody. You're going to see also it's going to be conjunct kind of end of March going into April of next year. And then you're going to see that again in like July. So these are all peak times where you could see something coming up. And specifically, I think about like Cancer season of 2026 all the way through about Pisces season of 2027 seems to be the window. And like, I think you're going to meet them when you're in a place where you're not looking for them. And that's kind of the energy also of like having Pisces in your 7th house. You know, you don't meet people when you're looking for them. You have to detach from the idea of looking from somebody. You need to let somebody find you. It also tells me that with the High Priestess card coming up, this is also about your role in really being more tapped into playing a role in calling that person in. So it could be something like sitting down and going, okay, you know, I'm going to make a list of all the qualities and the attributes that this person has. Maybe it means that you're going to be very specific with their qualities, with their appearance, with their lifestyle, with their job, how they are with you in a relationship, and like actually feel like you're kind of putting together this like tailored list of like your, you know, kind of most ideal soulmate in a way. And Jupiter in the 12th house can definitely be a soulmate transit, but it's also simultaneously clearing out things that are kind of connected to the past. So to answer your question specifically, I would say, is this person coming? Yes. You know, Cancer season all the way really through kind of like Pisces season seems to be very prominent. So the water months. I also feel like with that Nine of Pentacles, it is saying that you're probably going to connect with them or meet them in a way where you're not anticipating it. So you're not looking for them. they're going to meet you. They're going to find you in your natural element. Usually with the Nine of Pentacles, this is like when you're out doing your thing. If you're shopping, if you're having an experience, if you're in an outing, like somebody is going to see you in your natural element and be like drawn to you, and they're going to kind of come up to you. So you have to energetically call them in. And I do think it will be within the next year. So it's literally going to be like within the next like 6 months. Do I think you're going to meet them online? No, not necessarily. I think that you're much more likely to meet somebody in a more 12th house way because of the nature of Jupiter being in your 12th house. Like, you want to meet a good guy, as silly as it sounds, go to church, go to a meditation class, you know, maybe go to a charity event, maybe, you know, go and hang out around theaters or things that are connected to kind of like movies or things that you could be doing outside at night. You're more likely to meet people just due to the nature of like where Jupiter is in your chart. Through some of these events, and be more focused on being specific and telling who the universe is kind of, you know, calling in. And then I do think that you're going to end up meeting with this person. So hopefully that's helpful for you. Great cards that you're pulling, by the way. 2 majors, which are really prominent. Really, really cool. All right, we've got Alana. And then next will be Rachel and Adriana. Alana says, super bummed after a breakup and wondering when I'll feel better and new love will come. All right, well, sending you good vibes, Alana. Very difficult for my Virgo risings with these incoming eclipses because there's conclusions happening with like Jupiter in your 12th. You've got another eclipse in your 7th house, which is finally wrapping up kind of the Virgo Pisces storyline. But let's see what we can tell Alana after going through the breakup. She wants to know, is she going to feel better? Is there going to be new love again? What can we tell her about this energy right now? Page of Coins, Queen of Cups, 6 of Coins, great cards. I do kind of feel like for you, you know, the Page of Coins is kind of like the rebuilding phase, okay? So I know that you're saying, you're going through a breakup, you're not feeling so hot, you know, you're feeling, you know, kind of terrible. You want to know when things are going to feel better. When is love going to come? It's coming, but the Page of Coins is basically saying you have to really start rebuilding from the ground up. This is also about structure. This is about routine. This is connected to eating well, having healthy habits. It's like a Virgo card. Making sure that you're filling your schedule and you're not allowing yourself to kind of fall into escapism tendencies. I think that's the one thing that I would kind of caution a lot of like my Virgo and Virgo risings against in this next year, is that we can become too comfortable with Jupiter in the 12th house, Netflixing, you know, Uber eating, staying in bed, isolating, indulging, and being in like dream fantasy land about how relationships coulda, woulda, shoulda been. And that can be very unfulfilling, even more so than usual because the South Node is there. So as you see the North Node that's swinging into your 6th house, you focus on health and habits and routines, okay? So like I'm just telling you guys, because I'm coming out of these eclipses and some of these cycles being in my 12th and my 6th house, I feel like the only thing that saved me was just having a very rigid routine, you know, knowing which days I was working out, knowing what I was eating, making sure I was on top of my health and my supplements, keeping myself very busy. And the North Node's gonna want more of that, while the South Node in the 12th house is gonna like affect your sleep. You can kind of feel like obviously there's some stuff that's kind of coming up subconsciously too. But for you, the key here is about stability and having consistency in building this routine and making sure that you are not allowing yourself to fall into bad habits and patterns, and that you're really keeping your life very full and very structured, and you're prioritizing your health and your wellness, number 1. Number 2 is like, yes, you are going to feel better. You are coming up as the Queen of Cups. So this is saying that you're tending to your emotional wounds. You're learning to be more emotionally mature. You're learning to listen to your intuition, trust your gut, not necessarily feel like you're willing to accept less than what you deserve, especially with the 6 of Coins coming up. Notice that the Queen is actually looking at the page, okay? And she's looking away from the 6 of Coins. There's almost like a hint, in my opinion, with these cards that's kind of suggesting the more work you're doing on yourself, the more that you're prioritizing your needs, or you're recognizing that what you were asking for in the relationship was just bare bones and it was standard, and you stop beating yourself up and thinking you're not good enough, or you were asking for too much, or you expected too much, the better, okay? Because there is a possibility here that when you come to terms with the fact that it's okay to be sad, you know, you weren't getting your needs met, it is disappointing, and you finally realize that, there is a possibility of like the scales being kind of shifted or kind of adjusted, and that person who you've been dating potentially coming back and being like, hey, do you want to try again? Or, hey, I miss you. Or, you know, I've been thinking about you, but like, I don't think you're going to be interested. And you may not feel like that right now, but I feel like if there is an extended period of time where you guys aren't communicating, he's not checking in with you, and I know you guys broke up, but if he's acting like he doesn't care and he's not following up, or if there is no back and forth, then obviously, you know, it's going to be even harder for you to trust him when and if he does come back in. The final card that I get is the Six of Pentacles, which is about what you give, what you receive, okay? So it is saying that now you're super hyper focused on, if you do get into relationship again, that person has to be willing to meet you halfway. That is a non-negotiable. They have to be willing to make plans with you. They have to be willing to communicate. They have to be willing to text you back. You know, they need to be willing to make time. And these are things that you're now going to be very acutely aware of, because I think in the past, there was like a sense of you kind of making yourself small, or maybe not prioritizing your own needs, because you're in a relationship where you felt like you had to make sacrifices and you had to be giving more to somebody who is not necessarily giving you the same in return, right? And so the lesson learned, Page of Coins, is that you're like, I'm not doing that again, right? I'm not selling myself short again. And if I do go into a relationship in the future, it's got to be something where we're on kind of like a level playing field. I do feel very strongly that this is saying that there's going to be a pretty significant shift over the better part of like the next, 6 weeks to 6 months. You're very much in rebuilding mode, focusing on yourself mode. I could definitely see for my Virgo risings that there being some pretty significant shifts in like dating and relationships. It's going to be happening more as we're kind of getting into Capricorn season. So it would make sense within about 6 months towards the end of the year. That's when you're really going to start to see that change. And even in the beginning of next year, you're still going to see like another Mercury retrograde that's going to happen in Pisces. And then we're finally done with like the Pisces Virgo energy. So perhaps over the next 6 months, you're working on yourself. There is an energy where, not only does somebody else come in who might be a better match, but I also think there's going to be somebody from the past who's going to come back that's going to make you really, really have to kind of dig in your heels and go, do I want to open this door? Do I want to do this? Because they taught me that they couldn't give me what they want, and now suddenly they kind of want to come back. So it's about really keeping everything in balance. But for right now, yeah, I see a lot of opportunity for better things to come in, and also just physical and emotional healing throughout the entire process. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Sending you lots of love, Alana. All right, we've got Rachel, Adriana, and then Amanda. What's up, Rachel? Rachel says, I'll take a general card reading, thank you. All right, Rachel, this is your general reading. Love it. Card that I always want to see, the Nine of Cups. Bottom of the card is the Nine of Pentacles. Great, 2 9s. And this is so true. And I think this is more kind of like general of what you're going to see, especially if you've got like major Pisces kind of Jupiter energy in your chart. So if it's like Pisces rising, Sag midheaven, Jupiter would rule some of those placements. And this is like about abundance, growth, joy, getting more of what you want, feeling successful, feeling like things are having a breakthrough, and like feeling like you can celebrate some of your accomplishments and some of your wins. So that's basically what's getting ready to kind of happen for you. So you have to remind me what your ascendant sign is, because I don't remember, but I know this is an energy that has that association with like Jupiter and like emotional excess and like emotional abundance and growth, and kind of feeling like everything is finally starting to, kind of get the show on the road. I also feel like for you, okay, Pisces North Node. So you want to be watching where Jupiter is moving into with like Leo. And then obviously there's going to be eclipses in Pisces. So there's like a double dose of like Jupiter, energy in this next month. They're both of the eclipses. But like Libra rising. All right. So, that makes sense because the eclipses are going to be in your 11th house of gains and like goals and stuff. Likely what you're going to find is that things are actually going to finally feel like they're going your way. And what I like about this card is it kind of feels like you're sitting at like a casino and you're like holding all of the, you know, chips, and you're just like, you know, basking in some of the winnings, you know, that you've had, and like all of like the, you know, kind of like luck and things that have been kind of happening. And now you're like, okay, what do I want to do with this? You know, the world is my oyster. So there can feel like over the next month that there is this overabundance with like really good things that are happening. And I think like some Libra and Libra risings can look around and they can be like, can I trust this? Is this real? Is this legitimate? Like, is this a joke? You know, did I like win the lottery? And I would say no. You know, North Node going into Aquarius in your 5th house is very much going to be highlighting where you're focusing on your own personal joy. If your North Node's in Pisces in the 6th and you've got Jupiter going into the 11th, this could be about joining professional networks, fitness and wellness things that are connected to friends or groups, like joining fitness studios, joining recreational kind of like groups, joining, you know, professional groups and like networking, and like really feeling like you're like the center of attention in some way, and that you have a lot of people that are kind of gathering around you and like kind of celebrating with you. So pretty much one of the best cards that you can get. So essentially watch for some of those blessings that I think that's going to be kind of coming in throughout this next month. Thankfully, a lot of my, I feel like a lot of my Libra and Libra risings aren't going to get hit too directly from these eclipses. They're pretty friendly, at least the Leo one is. You might notice with the Pisces eclipse, especially with that being in your 6th house, that it's more about what are your professional goals, or, you know, what are your goals kind of connected to your workspace or your schedule, or things that are going to be more kind of connected to your health or your wellness. And make sure that you're not overdoing some things. And that could be, you know, overdoing it with work, overdoing it with health, overdoing it with habits. Those are the things that you need to kind of watch for, is overindulgence with this card. But other than that, I hope that it's a good month for you, and you'll definitely have to let me know what these good things are that end up manifesting. All right, we have got, I believe, Adriana and Amanda coming up next. Adriana says, hey, can you tell me about my career? Is a job change coming? All right, well, let's take a look. Thanks for joining memberships. I appreciate you. All right, Adriana, let's see. Is there a job change on the way? Is there a job change on the way for Adriana? Well, it kind of seems like the transition is like already on, or like you're already in limbo, or you've already come to terms with the fact that you're about to shift into something else, or there's about to be a change. One of the transition cards is the 6 of Swords. So this can be a card that's talking about going from point A to point B, where you're like, I know there's going to be, you know, a change coming up with, you know, management or leadership. And it's like you going like, if that's the case, like I'm seeing my way out, you know, or maybe you're already looking for another job and you're applying for jobs already and you're in the process of leaving. And then the 6 of Swords comes up. That's just like, well, you've already got one foot in, one foot out. You know, you're already in the process of making that change kind of a reality. In the House of Swords, which is pretty prickly, obviously this deals more with like anxiety and tension and like fierceness and communication and stress and like worry. This is not a easy, by any means, like house to be, you know, kind of dealing with. But the 6 of Swords is a well-welcome card, because what it represents is that you're moving on to calmer waters. You're moving into a position where you know that whatever change is coming in is going to be beneficial, and it's actually going to kind of provide you some kind of like escape from whatever it is that you've been doing. She says, I'm not, but we have had changes in leadership. Okay, so yes, I mean, I think that it's obvious that there is a lot of redirecting then. That's what's going on at work. And so the change is inevitable, whether this is the change within the company or if this is going to materialize as like, you know, you deciding that you want to change to a different department, or that you're wanting to, you know, maybe change to a different role, or that it's actually paving the way for you to finally start to see some headway. Whatever changes are happening at work, I actually think it's beneficial. I don't see it being something that's catastrophic. I think it's necessary, especially to see some kind of evolution either within the company or within the roles. And if anything, I think it's going to provide a little bit more calmness and a sense of clarity and direction for everybody who's involved. So I would stay the course. If you like your job, but you're kind of like, what's going to happen with this leadership change? I actually think it's going to be a good thing. Give it a couple of weeks to sit in or settle in. You know, usually this can like indicate that it's going to take about 6 weeks to really kind of fully see the transition. And they may be transitioning certain departments or like, you know, people into new roles or out of certain roles. So something like that is what's going to be kind of taking place. Okay, so if you're a Leo midheaven, then you're Scorpio, you know, rising most likely. So you're seeing that, you know, the solar eclipse is kicking it off next month, and then there's going to be, you know, Mars that will come into conjunction with the South Node, you know, and Jupiter, and then Mars will retrograde. So think of this as like a process where there is some big announcement or some big change with leadership that was supposed to happen within this last month. It's really being kicked off, and they're probably going to have a whole restructuring for everything that's going to happen with the business. You know, I would say clear into the fall. Thankfully, you have some of those trines to Saturn, so you should stay employed. Yes, you're going to feel like you're working with a bunch of incompetent people and that you're having to pick up the slack, but like there will be slow progress that's going to be made. And I would welcome the trine to Jupiter, you know, where other people are kind of stepping aside or maybe changing roles or positions. That can actually pave the way for you to actually see that you can go up the career ladder and you can have some success. But I would treat the next 6 months as almost kind of like a long distance race, not necessarily like a sprint. So pace yourself and, you know, watch for anybody who's kind of like, especially I've seen a lot of Scorpios in my life that are like, my boss is full of shit, you know, or like they don't really know what they're doing. And I'm just like, stick it out, just like wait, you know, just wait until all the bad apples kind of get shaken out, and then you'll be able to kind of get into like either a better position or change jobs. So give it some time and you'll really start to see this, the end of this month, and then also in the spring of next year is going to be quite positive, I think, with some of the trines between Jupiter and Saturn. Good luck. All right, we have got Amanda, and then Yolette, and then Kimberly. So let me go back to Amanda's question here. All right, Amanda says, cashing in, I'm considering moving back to South Carolina after living in Georgia for the past 3 years. I moved to Georgia after my painful breakup to be closer to my family, but still own 50% of a business in South Carolina. If you could pull 3 cards to help me understand the energy and likely outcome if I move back to South Carolina, 2, the energy if I remain in Georgia, and 3, what guidance do I need most to make the decision from a place of wisdom rather than emotional decisions? I like that. All right, so we're asking the cards about this living situation, dilemma. Obviously, Amanda moved a couple years ago. She still has a business in South Carolina. We need to ask the cards, what is the best move? All right, so we are going to ask number 1, the energy and likely outcome of moving back to South Carolina, okay? The card that I got is the King of Swords. That tells me that you've already started making these plans, or maybe you have started kind of rationally talking about this with an older male family, you know, friend or relative. So you can be talking about this with a brother, with a dad. It can mean that you also feel like for business reasons, it makes more sense to go back, or that you've been rehashing this and thinking about this a lot. And you're like, I finally have to make a decision and stick to it. And like, once I put my mind to it, I'm going to make it happen. So for me, I feel like the King of Swords is a very strong card for, you know, the argument of going back, and that likely you may already be in that mindset of I'm going to be returning, and you're just looking for confirmation, or you're looking for permission. And I would say, like, if you need permission from me, you know, it looks like that this is the direction that you are going in. And this is not an emotional decision. You're not making this decision emotionally. There is something practical behind it, and it does make me feel like it's going to make sense for you, especially in a business sense. Question 2 was the energy and likely outcome if you remain in Georgia. So this is the place that you have moved to. Now, the card that I got for you is the Star card. Okay, so not a bad card. It does mean that you can get settled, you can get situated, your dreams can still come true, there can still be a sense of you connecting with community, finding your way, fulfilling your goals. I think it's going to take time, right? That's really what I think. And what you're going to find is that over the better part of like the next 18 months, you know, now the North Node is in Aquarius. Now you're going to be seeing eclipses in Aquarius. Obviously, for like a very late Virgo rising, it's picking up both the energy of the 6th house of health and habits, but like you fall more into the category of like a Libra rising where the North Node is in Aquarius in your 5th. So dating, relationships, romance, and maybe feeling like you can bring more of that in. And so it is kind of saying, hey, if you're deciding to move purely because you're not seeing anything happening in like a romantic sense with where you're living now, that may not necessarily be the case. So don't move because you feel like you're not making any romantic connections, because you can still do that while you're there. So this is positive. Both of these are the element of air. So it's saying there's rational reasons for considering or contemplating being in either space. Personally, I feel like this is more about your dreams coming true, and it's much more about community and things that are connected to your kind of like social life, while the option to move back home seems more strategic from like a business standpoint, and also in a way that really makes me feel like you're going to be better connected, you're not going to feel so lonely, and like there is a lot more justification for going back home with the King of Swords coming up. And the third card that you asked was, what guidance do I need to make this decision from a place of wisdom rather than emotion? So first of all, you're making the decision from wisdom. It's not from emotion. Final card that you get is the Four of Wands, okay? Which is interesting because this is about celebrations, gatherings, togetherness, connection. I mean, I feel like on one hand, and it's not fair because like going back home, like your family is there, your friends are there, like it's very familiar, you know, like you could go back into your life and you could very easily kind of acclimate because you know everybody and you know that you've got that connection. That can still be built with where you're currently living. And it looks like it would be built over the better part of the next 18 months, and that maybe you're getting a little restless and there's a sense of you being like, maybe I should just go back, it would be better. I can tell you that either way, you're going to have community and you're going to have connection and you're not going to be lonely. It's just a matter of, do you want to go back and do you want to do it with the people that you already know? Or are you embracing connecting with people that is going to be new and kind of outside of your wheelhouse? Due to the nature of some of the transits, you know, in your 11th house of like social connections, celebrations and stuff over the next year, there's a lot of reconnecting with people that you haven't seen in a while. So the likelihood is you are going to be reconnecting and kind of going back home. And just personally, I don't see a bad path either way. Like if one was clearly better than the other, I would tell you. I think the only advantage that you have to going back home is that it's going to make sense from a business perspective, and that, you know, maybe it's because you're going to be able to be more hands-on with the business. Maybe it's going to allow you to kind of segue into doing that more or expanding that business. There also seems to be a relationship with a prominent man that's connected to this. So I don't know if it's going to be a father figure, a grandfather, a brother. If there's going to be a man that you're going to meet, that could be a business partner, it could be a future spouse or a relationship partner who would likely, you know, have some kind of element of air in their chart. So Aquarius, Gemini, you know, Libra, these are the signs that I would be looking for. And the final card being the Four of Wands is a wonderful card because it's saying you're going to be celebrated if you were to go back home, right? Versus, you know, you have to celebrate the small wins if you decide to stay where you're kind of unfamiliar and feeling like you're finally building community and you're staying there. But intuitively, I feel like with the King of Swords coming up with the Four of Wands, in your heart of hearts, you may know that it's time to go home, and that it makes sense, and that there is some strategic timing revolving around this, and like when it makes sense to just kind of close that chapter and kind of move into the next phase of life. So hopefully that's helpful for you. I do think that it will probably be going back home, so you'll have to let me know what happens and what that angle or that edge is with the business, because it looks like it would be very beneficial for the business for sure. All right, we have got Yolette. Oh, I take that back. Amanda's got another question. I didn't see it till just now. 29-degree Virgo rising, Cap Sun. I had an ex from several years ago reach out to me, and we haven't spoken in 3 years due to a very difficult breakup. Why is he calling and texting? Should I respond? What sign is he? And is he back home? Is that the guy who was coming up, the King of Swords? I didn't even see that until just now. Is he an air sign? Ay, ay, ay. I had an ex from several years ago reach out to me. Haven't spoken 3 years due to a very difficult breakup. Why is he texting me? All right. Well, let's see. Is there anything about this that you need to know? What does Amanda's ex want? Oh boy. I would say, as a Virgo rising, if there's any other Virgo risings that are listening, I think Sag risings might, not Sag risings, Capricorn risings might go through this too. It's just due to the nature of Jupiter kind of going through your 12th house, but stay with me. Jupiter rules your 7th house of relationships, right? Jupiter is in Leo. It's about ego. It's going through the 12th house of unfinished business. So a lot of Virgo risings are going to be thinking about past relationships, going through relationship changes, thinking about who they've been with, what they could have, should have done, whatever. And what you're going to notice is that people are coming back to you out of the blue because Jupiter's now in your 12th house, and they're starting to reflect on what they did wrong or whether or not they've healed their issues or whether or not they want you back, right? And like Jupiter in the South Node will meet several times. So do not get attached to these people is the best advice that I can give you. Don't believe me. Watch what happens as you're, getting into the eclipse later in August. Watch what happens when you get into mid-November this year when Mars and Jupiter are conjunct the South Node. I'm going to tell you to some extent, some of these tigers will not change their stripes. Okay. Now, with that being said, why did he come back? The card that I get is the obviously the Emperor. So this kind of signifies that it's a situation where he's coming back because he's grown up. He's done some reflecting. He's now able to see where things went wrong. I like this card as much as I'm not crazy about an ex coming back because I don't have a lot of, positive things to say about the astrology. This is somebody who's like now kind of grown up and they're mature and they know what they've done wrong and they know what they want. And like, to me, this seems like maybe, decent person. It's been the wrong timing in the past. I also kind of feel like this person's coming in because they might feel like they want to right some wrongs. And usually the Emperor, they have an agenda. They're like, this is what I want. This is what I want to do. So you might be calling somebody in who's gone through some of the same stuff that you've gone through recently, where they were in a relationship, they made them realize all of the things they didn't want, all of the things they needed to change in, dating land. They became acutely aware of their own hang-ups, the relationship ended, and then boom, now he's just like thinking about you, and he's just like, that's the one that got away. Like, that's kind of the feeling that I'm getting, and that there is some sense of like attachment and also eagerness to want to see this through and feel like he can kind of come in and, not kind of sweep you off your feet in a way. And he can be very persistent, with kind of pursuing you. So there's a goal here. I can't tell you if it's because it's selfish reasons, because sometimes on the other side of the coin, with the Emperor card, it's like they go and they take what they want. They don't have to answer to anybody, right? They kind of supersede a king. They control the entire kingdom, so they can kind of just go and grab stuff and make decisions and make the rules, and like nobody, they don't have to answer to anybody. So I would be asking questions. I would be like, where have you been? What's the deal? Like, what provoked you to want to reach out to me? And also it's good because this is a good time for closure. If that's not someone you're interested in, or if you feel like it's going to be a lot of the same thing, that's just kind of like a 2.0 version of the relationship you had, you can close that door and you can basically be like, we're good here. It's good to hear from you, but I wish you well and far away. That way you kind of create that space so you're not calling in some of the same lessons karmically again and again. And I feel like he can be quite persistent, so you have to be ready for that. But it does look like he has changed a bit, so that's nice to see, but sometimes it's too little too late. All right, we've got Yolette, and then Kimberly, and then Kim Hong. You guys are all next. And thank you guys for your patience. I appreciate it. Miss Yolette, she says, hi, Candace. Since the eclipses are hitting my big 3 this August and my birthday, wow, 8/13, I would like to know what the cards would like me to know as a Leo sun and also moon. And then you have your Pisces 7 degrees. So wait a second. So your sun is Leo, your moon is Leo, and what, you have Pisces 10 degrees rising. So it's very, 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 very personal for you, because all that Leo is like, connected to your 6th house if you're a Pisces rising. So it's a lot of changes with your appearance, major conclusions and completions with your body. Oh, moon in Pisces. Okay, because I couldn't see the breakdown. So your rising sign is, ascendant is Leo. Now I see it. Wow, so even the eclipses next year are going to be on your ascendant. That's wild. So Leo rising, Leo sun, moon in Pisces. So your moon is in your 8th house. Okay. I have some theories, but let's see what the cards say. I would say embracing a new version of yourself, inside out, right? And releasing and kind of shedding old skin. A lot of people who have those Pisces kind of moons with like the Leo rising or Leo sun, it's also about like emotional detox and shedding and like learning to kind of let go of negative emotions. Some of them, it can also be about major transformation with the body or even like pregnancy. So let's ask the cards, what does she need to know about being kind of really lit up in this next month? So it was in this order. Then I got the Page of Wands, the Four of Pentacles, and the Three of Wands, which I feel like is really wonderful. I love that we've got a page element coming in, which means you're kind of approaching your identity in a new way. Like my interpretation of like the South Node eclipses in the first house is, what am I getting rid of? And so a lot of you guys are going to make some bold, daring kind of changes with your appearance. And whether that's changing your hair color, cutting your hair off, changing your style, kind of ditching an old wardrobe, bringing in something new, or kind of connecting to a younger, creative, more youthful version of yourself would be a wonderful thing to do. So I would be like, go to the back of your wardrobe. What are some things that maybe you wore when you were younger that still fit you, that you really love, that are some like iconic pieces that you want to bring back, right? Because this is about playing and being creative and kind of feeling like you're playing a role with like the Page of Wands coming up and having fun with it. It can also talk about that there is a new version of you that's kind of brewing or is potentially kind of coming in. And then we have the Four of Pentacles, which is also saying like, this is that energy that's smack dab in the middle of all of this fire energy, which is like, go, 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 new things, like release, start over, that you're like, wait a second. There can be like this process of you like wanting to grab on and wanting to hold on to these old identities and like not let go. Like I think about when I had like the eclipses in the South Node going through my first house, I was like, there are certain ways of things that I was so used to doing that I didn't want to stop doing, and it was mostly like Libra things. It was aesthetic things. Like I was like, well, I wear my hair this way, or it's this color, this is how I do my makeup, and I just was just like, I'm just going to let it all go. I'm going to start over and I'm going to choose a less is more kind of mentality. For Leo, I think that this is going to be about anything that doesn't make you feel good, or anything that doesn't make you feel confident, or anything that doesn't make you feel like your main character energy. You have to just release it and you have to let it go. So it doesn't mean it has to be all these like fancy name brand flashy things. It's things that are genuinely going to be a reflection of your personal identity and your style. And this might be hard for you with the Four of Coins coming up, because it could mean that you're like, I don't want to embrace change. I don't want to let go of certain, things, or I don't want to stop doing things a certain way. And I would be like, that's like the eclipse that's going to be in Pisces, where even though it's in the 8th house and it's very emotional and it's sensitive to change, and change is a part of life, you will resist, and there will be a sense of you being like, I don't want to let go and like, initiate something new. So notice where there's resistance is what I would say, because you're going to see the physical change happen early in the month on the 12th, and then towards the end of the month when we have the Pisces eclipse in the 8th, then the emotional change comes after the physical change. And then finally, the third card you got is the Three of Wands, which is a really great energy. It tells me that not only have you decided to start fresh and maybe kind of, ditch things that you have been holding on to physically, emotionally, financially, what have you, but now there is like a lighter load, right? Like the Three of Wands means that you can travel, you can move more easily, that maybe that you're feeling more courageous, more independent. There's also a sense of you having opportunities for travel, or maybe that's part of it, that, if you have less that you're kind of carrying, literally or figuratively, that it makes it easier to kind of pick up and go, that you're not kind of attached to the past or old ways of being or old ways of kind of living. And that there's adventure that kind of awaits you, and that there's going to be excitement and also opportunities for you to kind of go and travel places and maybe even do things like in a much more independent way. A lot of that I would tie to the energy of like, the trines that you're going to see to Saturn in your 9th house, where a lot of you guys are willing to take risks when it comes to education, or when it comes to learning, or when it comes to traveling. And I would just say travel lightly. You don't need to take a lot with you. Changed my hair color yesterday, and everybody knows that's a very dangerous thing. When a woman changes her hair color drastically, or like she has a big hair chop, or maybe suddenly has bangs, it's like something's either brewing, or you're about to see the big change. And so really this is the solar eclipse that's going to come in. That's the physical shift before you see the emotional detox and some of that purging that's going to be happening, towards the Pisces eclipse. And these are great cards. I would just say you can't cling on to who you used to be. You have to embrace this kind of evolution. And for all of my Leo and Leo risings, it's going to be a slow process. And I think that also there's going to be maybe a little bit of having to temper impulsiveness that you will see that will happen in, you know, kind of intermittently throughout this next year. So you can't force the process. The process has to kind of evolve. And you'll also notice with the South Node there that you can change how you look, you can change how you dress, you can change things about your appearance. But what you will learn eventually when the nodes get into your 6th and your 12th house in a couple of years is like some of those same problems or emotional issues or blockages or fears still reside. So right now you're dealing with the external stuff. Eventually you will get in more to the internal stuff. So I would just say be prepared for that and don't put too much emphasis on how you look. There has to be that feeling of how you feel. But what's cool is like the Pisces eclipse is definitely gonna, you know, make sure that that gets covered. So really interesting to see all that hitting your chart. Definitely let me know what ends up transpiring with those eclipses on your very personal points in your chart. All right, we've got Kimberly, and then we've got Kim Hung, and then we've got Lauren. What's up, Kimberly? And I see that you've got 2 questions here, so I'll make sure I answer both of them. Hey, Candace, let me know what the card says if I should pay off my mortgage or save some and reserve for something unforeseen. Thanks, Leo, Sun, Pisces rising. Smart, smart Pisces rising with that Saturn, Neptune in your 6th. Debt also is going to be Jupiter going into your 6th. So that's why you're kind of like, do I pay the debt? Do I not? And then it looks like upgrade to 3 cards. Okay, cool. So the question is does she pay off the mortgage or save some and reserve for something unforeseen? All right, well, let's take a look. Let's see what the cards say for you, Kimberly. Is she paying off the mortgage? Is she saving for something unforeseen? What's it going to be? I love that you're saying that with like Saturn and Neptune being in your 2nd house of money. You're like, is there going to be something unforeseen? I don't see like any catastrophic financial situations. It's almost as if like you're preparing for that just in case. Just a 3-card reading if you can for money stuff. Okay, so I get where you're coming from. Just naturally because, you know, you have that Pisces rising. Watching Jupiter, one of your chart rulers, and the sun and the eclipses going into your 6th house with the South Node is like, you're like, I want to eradicate any debt, or I don't want to feel like I owe, you know, a note on anything, which is very smart. I also think that you're going to have another window of opportunity to pay stuff off. And that will be coming for you like in the fall. So I can see that's going to be closer to like October and November. But I feel like that could be a little bit more tricky during the retrogrades, just due to the nature of like the retrograde happening in your 8th house and the fact that it's going to be like, you know, coming into some squares and some oppositions with stuff. Like it may be harder to get it all paid off then. The moon card is telling me that something intuitively is telling you to like have a rainy day fund or to, you know, be a little bit more cautious or to be a little bit more prepared. Even though obviously, you know, I'm an astrologer and a tarot reading, I'm not a financial advisor, but everybody who's a little bit financially savvy is going to tell you, number one thing you want to do is you want to pay off your debt. You don't want to be carrying an existing debt. So I'm going to give you credit for wanting to do that, but I'm going to tell you that there still needs to be a sense of you having some money on the side in case of emergency or in case of a rainy day fund. I think with like the moon card coming up with a 3 of Swords is like, you're saying I would be crushed if I put all this money into paying my house off, and then for whatever reason, if I needed money on the side and there was some, God forbid, you know, quote unquote, crisis or issue or conflict. And like, honestly, if I were a Pisces rising, I would be like, well, what if I don't have consistent work, right? Because the eclipse is in the South Node's in the 6th. What if I have health problems? What if my pets have health issues? What if I'm needing childcare? You know, what if I'm having to change something about my office? These are all things that will come up intermittently for you over the next year. But so will Jupiter and the South Node meeting in your 6th house. And I feel like there is a way to really lean into, you know, Jupiter in your 6th trining Saturn in your 2nd, where you can come up with a plan where you're going, okay, I've got the money, I can pay off the mortgage. Maybe you decide that you want to be paying double the amount, you know, right now, and you're paying more towards, you know, paying off your total amount that's due. But you're still keeping some money in the bank in the off chance that something happens. Like you can do both. And it's smart also to be just really cautious about this, because I also feel like there can be some things that can come up this year where you're like feeling very burnt out or emotionally overwhelmed, where you may need to or feel like you want to rely on that money. And I'm not saying you're going to waste it, but knowing that you have that for like emotional or financial security. So should you decide that you want to take a step back and be like, hey, I can take it easy, and like I know I can still pay my bills, and like I'm also kind of ahead of my mortgage, you would be fine. I also think that with the Knight of Wands coming up as your final card, it's saying that you feel this incentive to come up with a plan where you're going to be paying this off over time. So I still think you're going to pay your mortgage early. Like, I don't think that's going to be something you're not going to do. It's just a matter of when, and maybe, you know, do you come up with other things to do with that money? Like, not necessarily just sitting on it. Like, are you going to invest part of that money? Are you going to put it into a higher interest yield? Is it going to be something that's kind of like more risk oriented? You know, obviously be careful, because the market's going to be like all over the place. And I do think that there may be ways for that money to make you money, and it would be smarter rather than putting it all into paying off a mortgage, which is great. You own a property, right? But you're still going to pay property tax. It's still going to be a liability. You're still going to have to do upkeep and like management of that particular house, which you're doing anyway, but it would be still an expense that you're going to be dealing with monthly. I would be exploring options in ways that you can look at some of that money that's sitting around and decide, or maybe talk to somebody about where you can be putting it to work. So that way you could be not just going, well, am I just going to pay off my mortgage? Or you could go, okay, I'm paying a little bit more towards my mortgage, but like the investments that I'm making is actually making me a lot more. Or putting it in a high interest yield is bringing a decent amount of money in until I decide that I actually want to pay the whole thing off. And you will really be looking at this quite a bit in November, just due to the nature of your transits. Also, again, spring of next year into next summer. But what you will probably find is that through your ability to take a little bit more risk with your resources, it can actually help you expand your overall kind of money and lean into Saturn being in your second house, where you can take conservative risks. You don't have to, you know, be all or nothing with your money. And it can actually be really beneficial for you in the long run. So keep a little bit of money in a safe space, explore ways that you can make it grow, come up with a plan maybe to, you know, try to pay this off if you want to do that like over the next 3 years, but it's not something that you have to do immediately right now. Hopefully that's helpful for you. And who knows, maybe you'll be able, if you have a low interest rate, maybe that's a reason to keep it. Or if you don't, maybe it's going to be refinancing it, but it doesn't necessarily look like it's going to be something you're going to do immediately. All right, we have got, let's see, so we have got Kim Hung, Lauren, and then Silk. Thank you guys for your patience. I appreciate it. Kim Hung, did you send me a specific question? Let's see. There we go. Hi, it's Jenny. Cancer Sun, Sag Moon, Cap Rising. Just whatever comes up. All right. Certainly that eclipse on your Venus is going to be interesting. Thanks, Jenny. All right, let's see. What can we tell Jenny? Give us a general reading, please. What does she need to know? I like that for like all that fire energy in your chart. Like your Sag and everything is really going to like the eclipse, and also the Capricorn risings too, because Jupiter's trining Saturn. So that's actually really wonderful. I think you're going to get some good stuff all around. But an eclipse on your Venus is always a bit of a toss-up. I think that for me, when I think about your chart, because you've got eclipses coming through the 8th, which is indicating there's going to be major changes in other people's money, transformation, intimacy, almost like a clearing out, you know, of anything that's like secretive or kind of hidden or discreet about money or relationships. And then another eclipse that's going to be in Pisces in your 3rd house that's ruled about that. I think it's about being more courageous and having conversations about things that can be uncomfortable, right? The Page of Wands is literally like bringing a torch into a situation, and in a way is kind of fearless. maybe sometimes a little adolescent, or, you know, like there's like a sense of them not being as experienced and being kind of like foolish. But they're confident and they're curious and they're willing to go places that other people, you know, kind of know better to kind of go into. So the reason why I say that is just due to the nature of the 8th house energy that's coming with the eclipses, and the eclipse in your 3rd house of communication, you know, thought process, mind, conversations, documents, and then Jupiter being in your 8th house. Like, such powerful breakthroughs to do a lot of journaling and reflection over the next month, to maybe be listening to self-help podcasts or things about working through heartbreak or childhood trauma, and getting to the core of why you choose the people that you choose and the relationships that you choose. And like that being kind of that reset and that purging, you know, that's going to be happening with, obviously, you know, Venus in your 8th. Anybody who has Venus in their 8th house always has a really unusual storyline with like relationships and also with money. That's like, well, a relationship comes in after like some kind of devastating situation. So you're like, well, you know, I found out my partner was cheating on me and then I met someone, or I ended up getting involved with somebody and then they told me that, you know, their grandma just died, or like they just lost their job, or you are going through, you know, like a world of change, and then boom, somebody kind of lands in your life. So like relationships always go hand in hand with like some pretty significant change for you. And that's going to be a big theme over the next year, watching Jupiter hit that. And I think it's really kind of clearing out like karma and relationships and like bringing a light to some of the psychological and emotional patterns, and where maybe you go and you get involved in things that are like exciting or risky, or, you know, for the, like the sake of it, just because your Venus is at 21, and that you're going to be learning to maybe identify where you go after some of these people or some of these things. But it doesn't always lead you to true connection and to true intimacy. If you're in a relationship, it can be highlighting where there's going to be opportunities to go deeper in your conversations and be a little bit more transparent and vulnerable, and be able to talk about things maybe that's scary, you know, and that can be about your intimate life, it can be about your finances, it can be about your childhood, and be able to kind of, you know, go a little bit deeper into these conversations and like learn how to trust and kind of like open up again. And negotiations can be another theme. So negotiating contracts or anything that deals with joint finances, documents that are connected to taxes or connected to partners' money, or things that are connected to insurance or like estates. These are other things that you want to watch for. So I would say proceed with caution. Don't rush through any of that stuff. And be careful with taking any unnecessary financial risks, with like the eclipse being on your Venus, and then, you know, watching some of the activations. Like a lot of my Capricorn risings are going to feel inclined to like take out debt or loans under these transits. And I would be like, be careful, because it could end up being a mountain of debt, or like a lot of expenses, or like a larger loan, or like the interest rates could be like really crazy. And Venus is obviously going to be about indulgence, but as a Cap rising, it rules your 10th house. So it could also mean that you're negotiating getting better benefits at work, or you're negotiating something about your you know, your salary, your pay, and you're working out something about your talents and trying to bring more of your creative abilities, you know, Page of Wands, front and center, you know, when it comes to like your career and who you're kind of working and partnering with or doing life with in general. So it's really going to spotlight that. Venus in Leo is very warm, especially if it's at 21 and like a Sag degree. But I think that I would keep an eye out for where there could be legal expenses, travel expenses, anything that's connected to maybe having to pay to file documents, or dealing with back and forth over inheritance or security, or anything that's going to deal with taxes. Like those kinds of documents are what you're really going to want to watch out for. And I would say just don't rush through any of that stuff. Take your time. Hopefully that's helpful for you. All right, we've got Lauren and then Silk. What's up, Lauren? Lauren says, am I going to be moving out of state in the fall for a new job? I keep feeling like I'm going to be moving soon. I currently live in North Carolina. I'm a Scorpio sun and Leo rising. Well, if you're a Scorpio sun, if you listen to Scorpio sun horoscopes, it's going to be like, okay, you know, Jupiter and Pluto have been opposing each other. There's a career change with a home change on the horizon, which you might relate to. But especially I think about like the Leo risings, where they're going to have like the Venus retrograde that's going to happen in their 4th house in the fall. It's very much kind of like written into the astrology for a lot of you guys that there's like an impending home change coming one way or another. But Let's ask the cards. Is it looking like Lauren's going to be moving out of state in the fall for a new job? I love that you're a Scorpio sun and you're pulling the Queen of Cups because it's just kind of saying like your gut and your intuition is telling you that there is definitely some change on the horizon. But with the Queen of Cups, it's also about like, are you emotionally open to that? Like being a Scorpio myself, I feel like it's so funny because we always know when change is coming. And sometimes we have a tendency of like white knuckling it and being like, no, like this thing is coming, even though like we know like that's part of being a water sign. And I think that with the Queen of Cups, it's about opening up and being receptive and going with the flow and channeling the change if the change is necessary and if it's positive. What if I told you that this change in your living situation for work is not only probably beneficial to get into a much better living situation, but also it's probably going to help kind of remedy a relationship dilemma, or maybe it's going to finally bring you the opportunity to meet somebody new, or to channel that energy into connecting with somebody that you can commit to. Or it might be like a make or break situation, you know, in a relationship if you're currently partnered. Because that's kind of the feeling that I'm getting, especially knowing that, you know, Mars is going to be moving through Leo. So a lot of Leos are going to be like, I'm moving. And then, you know, it's going to square the Venus retrograde in October and November. So you guys are dead set on, you know, changing something about your home and your career. And it will be opposing, you know, Jupiter, excuse me. It's going to be opposing Pluto that's going to be in your 7th house. So it might feel like a really defining moment where you're moving away from a place where there's been relationship dissatisfaction, or relationships haven't been like moving, or they haven't been working. And you might want to think back to what happened in the fall of 2018. That was the last time, I think it was like October, November, that we had Venus retrograde in Scorpio. And then also it happened in the fall of 2010. So there's always an interesting storyline for Leo risings revolving around clearing out family karma, moving back home, moving out of your hometown, making changes with your career, your status for, you know, your home or your living situation. And like a retrograde doesn't have to be a bad thing. Like retrogrades are karmic. So it can be a time where something is revealed. And like, I call this one like a quadruple threat because Venus retrograde is not easy. Venus in Scorpio deals with necessary change. You know, it's going to be conjunct Mercury, so we have to make up our mind. It's going to square Mars and Pluto. It's like literally one of the worst retrogrades I think I've ever seen, like as a professional astrologer. So it's going to be a doozy, and it's going to be necessary for you to kind of uproot yourself and make a change, especially if you need more adventure, and also if you need some necessary changes, you know, especially in your relationship life. Because that will be squaring Pluto. So it might mean that you're going to like put your foot down and be like, look, you know, you and I have been back and forth for a while. I've got a job opportunity. We ain't working, like peace, you know, and you finally kind of like close the coffin. Or if you've been in a situation where, you know, you're on the fence with somebody and you're like, I'm moving. Are you coming with me? Are you in? Are you out? You know, and probably right around the time that you see that change in your living situation, your relationships will then change pretty quickly thereafter. So listen to your gut. I think it's just trying to give you that heads up that, you know, change is inevitable, and it's about kind of going with the flow and being open to this. And I think it can be really good for you emotionally. Good luck. All right, we've got Silk, Camille, Brianna. What's up, Silk? Silk says, hi, Candace. I just recently started horseback riding lessons and I have fallen in love. I don't really know where it's going despite the lack of support from friends and family on this, and I guess I wanted to see where this leads me. So where do you have Sagittarius in your chart, or Jupiter, because that's horses? And I've heard so many people recently that are like, I'm getting involved with horses, you know, Jupiter and Leo, or my kids are riding horses, or people are taking comedy lessons, acting classes, all this stuff. So very, very horsey related things. All right, well, let's see. What can the cards tell us about just recently starting these horseback riding lessons? Friends don't really understand it, but you want to see, where is this leading her? What is the purpose for these horsies in her life right now? It's interesting because I feel like, you know, I think part of what's going on is that you want to feel like you have a intuitive, instinctual connection with someone. And that there needs to be like this almost like telepathic connection and a way for you to be able to connect and communicate with someone without even having to say anything at all. That somebody just understands you, they're reading your body language, you're reading their body language, It's a break from that human interaction. It's also an opportunity to connect with the element of air, which is about, intellect, like kind of being telepathic, learning, instruction. I mean, like, if you're riding horses, they're not just teaching you, how to put your saddle on, how to, kind of deal with, all of the setup with the bit and all of that stuff. You are also having to learn, how to brush them, how to put them in their stables, how to read their body language, how to lead them, and developing that relationship where you guys don't speak the same language. And I think that's like wonderful. So your Jupiter's in Sag, there you go. So it's in its home sign and it's in the 11th house. So what's cool is like if you have Sagittarius in the 11th house, part of what's going on as an Aquarius rising is you see Saturn in your 3rd house of learning, walking, communication, community, getting around, and you're deciding to get around in an old-fashioned way by yourself, right, Aries? Because it's trining Jupiter, it means that you're just like, it's my goal to be able to kind of learn about horses. And obviously, you've got Uranus going through your 5th house where you're like, my friends aren't really understanding, what's going on with my hobbies. I would be like, don't worry about it. This is an amazing opportunity, I think, for you to really strengthen your intuition, to learn something new, to feel connected in a really instinctual, intuitive way. And also this can be about building silent confidence. The Ace of Swords is about just knowing how to, I think, create a boundary and assert yourself, not in a way that is aggressive or, is kind of confrontational, but it's about knowing your boundaries. And so like when you're working with animals, especially animals that big, right? Like those horses aren't going to allow you to ride them. They're not going to behave. They're not going to, do any of that stuff, even if they're well-trained horses, unless they respect you. So a lot of this is about you really carrying your voice with a sense of authority, developing trust, connecting, communicating with this animal, and like also like learning to trust yourself in the process. So she says, yes, I've been feeling a little bit more confident recently. I feel like anybody who has Jupiter in Sag would benefit from working with or being around horses. And if your Jupiter is in the 11th house and Saturn is trining, you may very well make some, horse friends. So you might see that actually be a theme that's going to be playing out later this year. So I would say kind of wait for that. Jupiter and Saturn are going to also trine right at the end of this month. So I think that can be really wonderful. Who knows? You might end up meeting somebody with Jupiter in your 7th house trining your natal Jupiter and also Saturn in your 3rd. So hopefully you meet a cowboy. I don't know. We'll see. All right. We've got Camille and then we've got Brianna. Kathleen, are you still here? I'm not sure if you are. All right. So Camille, you're welcome. I know you sent your reading earlier. Sorry, I didn't put a question in PayPal. I was trying to beat the cutoff. On Wednesday this week, a house for rent fell into my lap and I got it. Can I make it work financially and is it meant to be? Good question. All right, let's take a look. So this house for rent fell into her lap. Very Mercury direct moment. Does it look like this is a good move for her financially? Can she make it work? Is this a meant to be rental for Camille? You have got the 6 of Cups, the Chariot, the 3 of Wands. I mean, girl, it looks like a really great opportunity. There's nothing that comes up here stressful for me financially at all. So when you're saying, can I make it work? I feel like it may not be all that much different than what you're doing now. There's also something strangely familiar maybe about the house. You get the 6 of Cups. So it's kind of like you going, I feel like this place is familiar, or it feels very homey, or it reminds me of a place I've lived before, or maybe you've been in a similar area, or like the layout of the house feels like it's just somewhere that you've lived before. And that 6 of Cups means you keep coming back to it, being like, something gets me really excited and it feels like this is what's meant to be and it feels safe and like I keep coming back to this, so like I'm gonna do it, And the Chariot card is saying like you're most likely you're gonna move. So if it's come to you, if it's something that you keep kind of going round and round about, the Chariot card tells me that this can be a good move for you, that it's not just going to be about moving, because that's what this is. It's about kind of making some changes with your living situation, but that this is going to propel you forward emotionally when it comes to your emotional development. And also it's going to like, I think, spring a lot of other positive things for you when it comes to your private life and your home life. The Three of Wands comes up as the closing card, which basically means like it's an adventure. Maybe you are going to be exploring a new area. Maybe this means that, you know, you didn't anticipate moving this quickly and you kind of have to get all of your stuff together and get the show on the road and be on the process of actually making the move. Sometimes with the Six of Cups, it's like we're just kind of playing around, looking at places. We don't really anticipate finding anything, or we don't really think that we're going to get it, especially if the market's competitive. And then it's like, boom, you get it. And you're now like, oh my God, am I moving? You know? I think it's a good move. I think it's a good fresh start for you. I think that the Three of Wands talks about getting to explore a new area and being in a new space and a place where you can connect with a new community. It's exciting around, you know, that place that you're going to be living. It does feel like you have been long overdue with the Chariot card coming up from like a renewal in your living situation. And to me, it feels like there's probably going to be like a new cast of characters that are coming into your life, because the Three of Wands represents like having people who are by your side in like this new chapter. So unless you're moving with another person, you're going to be moving, and then you're going to find that maybe you're getting to know neighbors, maybe you're getting to know new coffee shops and gyms and grocery stores, and like there's a whole new cast of people who are kind of coming into your life because you're getting into a new space. And it's going to be an adventure, and certainly something that feels like a little unfamiliar, but it looks to me like your heart and your mind keep coming back to this, being like, I don't know what it is, but I just feel like I can't walk away from this house, and I got it. Should I do it? Yes. Emotionally, it's going to be worth maybe the last minute move, and also, you know, maybe having to stretch your budget a little bit further, but I think it's going to be worth it in the long run. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Camille. Good luck with that move. That's exciting. And then we've got Brianna. What's up, Brianna? You always manage to come in right in the nick of time. Thanks, Dave. Smash those like buttons and subscribe and share. Yeah, make sure you guys do that. Brianna says, hi, or do you know, work has been very finicky, and I'm stuck wondering if I should wait it out or start elsewhere. I don't really feel like I have a hobby, and I'm not competitive, so I don't really know where to start. Thank you in advance. All right, Brianna, aren't you Libra rising? Because if you are, the next month is a good time to shake it up at work, because there's going to be an eclipse in the 4th house. No, you're fine. You're good. So you're just kind of saying work has been kind of finicky. You're wondering if you should stay where you are, or maybe try to find something that's a better fit. You don't really have something that's like a hobby or a side hustle. You're not competitive, and you're just kind of wondering, like, where do you even start if you're going to make a job change? Well, one thing I will tell you, if you've got that Libra in your chart, I'm pretty sure you do, you're going to see that like the North Node and the eclipses in your 5th is a wonderful time to start a hobby or a side hustle. Like 5th house side hustles would mean, do you start something that's more influencer based? Do you do something with children? Do you decide that you want to start doing party rentals, you know, on the side? Do you decide that you want to get into competitive gambling? You know, I'm not saying I'm advocating for that, but do you learn about trading? You know, those might be things that start kind of coming up with Aquarius in your 5th. So let's see, does it make sense to stay where you're at? Maybe is there some other kind of career path coming forth? And if so, can you give us an idea of what that would be? All right, so 3 of Pentacles is coming up, which is saying like, yes, you can stay where you're at now, but to me, it kind of feels like it would be ideal to get you into a position or get you into a career where you feel like there is going to be momentum that's being built towards having, you know, higher levels of success or even longevity in a specific field. That's kind of the feeling that I'm getting, right? So 3 of Pentacles is saying, if you're willing to put in the work, be that starting a business, looking for a new business, working with a new team, developing skills would be something else that I would say can be beneficial. Like for a lot of Libra risings, you know, sure, you got the North Node in the 5th, so there's more willingness to be creative and take chances, but you've got Uranus in the 9th. And so a lot of like my Libra risings are like, okay, I want to learn about, you know, trading stocks, because 9th house is education. I want to learn about graphic design. I'm going to school to be a paralegal. Maybe it means that you're debating whether or not you want to get involved in a travel industry, right? So like all of these things could be things that are kind of coming up where you're going, how can I take some of my interests or hobbies that I have, find a way to go and get certified or get some training and like do something that's going to be like, you know, more kind of professional. And I would be like, you can have fun with it. It doesn't have to be boring. You will have the opportunity to do this over the better part of like the next 3 years, right? And you have to go and look at where your natal moon is, because the moon's going to rule your 10th house. So whatever transits are happening to your moon is going to tell you what's going to be manifesting. But it may be a good idea to get in touch, because the Three of Pentacles is like going to be a career coach. It could also mean that you're talking to somebody who's doing job placement, where you go to a company and like, you don't have to quit your job, but you go to a company and you're like, these are all my skills. This is my background. This is what I do. I'm looking for a new position. You know, give me some feedback and let me know if there's anything that kind of comes up for these roles. Because this is about a collaboration and interaction you're having with another person who's helping you build towards the future. Unless you're really happy staying at the job that you're at and you want to be doing that forever, and you want to go and sit down and have a meeting and talk to your boss or talk to your team and be like, how can I take on more work and responsibility? You know, that's another option. But I think that a lot of my Libra risings, just speaking from experience with like the Mercury retrograde in the 10th house over the last month and a half, like squaring Saturn, has been a lot of us going, yeah, I'm not crazy about what we're doing, or I need to take time off, or I'm losing that momentum or like that motivation, or like maybe I need to redirect something, right? So if you've been feeling like you're spinning your wheels, most likely going and getting some kind of support from another person would be really beneficial. And I would probably consider like going and talking to somebody who's doing some job placement, who might be, you know, doing, hiring, or they're doing hunting, and talking to them about what skills you have. So maybe you can feel like you can get into something that you can really utilize some of your skills at, and also start to feel like you're building towards not just having a job, but actually having like a career. That's kind of the feeling that I'm getting. So, you got a couple of years to do this, but immediately over the next 3 months would be a wonderful time to maybe go to like a career fair. And I think you'll see the opportunities to do that. Like the eclipse in the 11th house is about to happen. So if you're wanting to go and connect with other companies and people who are hiring and things like that, look for online career hiring events, look for local career fair opportunities where they're going to be having like hiring events in your local area, and also like companies that might be connected to children, entertainment, anything that deals with traveling, education, publishing. She says, I currently drive for a Candace company in Los Angeles. I mean, obviously there's always going to be business for that, right? Like working in your field, but like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would also assume if that's what you're doing, there's a lot of flexibility in that role, because people are always, you know, they're always going to be driving and like, you know, like delivering in LA. It's like one of the cities, you know, in the country that's pretty much almost 24 hours. So because you may have that flexibility, I would look at this and go, okay, you know, if you have the option to decide that you want to work nights, or you want to work certain days, or you want to work weekends, and you have that flexibility with the rest of your time, do seriously consider whether or not you could be looking into, you know, taking a course or developing another set of skills or something, even if it's management related, right? If you want to stay in the company that you're in. So that way you can really make the most of that flexibility, and you're going to see that a lot of your goals are going to change over the next year in regards to how you're making money. And honestly, the trines to Saturn is going to be about getting some kind of support, and whether that's like talking to an astrologer and having them analyze, because Saturn could be, you know, your astrologer in your 7th house. Hey, what's a good job for me? You know, what career field? Cancer in midheaven is like being a mother, taking care of homes, managing Airbnbs, doing things connecting to childcare, things that's connected to nurturing, to counseling, to healing, you know, all of that stuff. So yeah, and if you don't have, I mean, if you have flexibility but you don't have benefits, I feel like may not be a bad idea to start really digging into your chart and maybe talking to somebody or talking to a career coach and being like, what options do I have, or what could I be building towards? Because you could do all kinds of like, you know, distant like learning certifications that you could do online that you don't have to physically, you know, go to a class for. So you could learn skills that you can be applying to maybe starting your own business, right? So hopefully that's helpful, but it does look like it's going to take a little bit of like a team to be able to get that support. All right, well, that is it for me. So thank you guys for joining me. Please make sure that you guys are subscribed. Click the bell button below so you can get alerts for more of my videos. I will be back on Sunday. We're going to do astro weather. We've got all kinds of other videos that are going to come out throughout the week. And as a reminder, we're going to be back next week, same time, same place. It's going to be tarot. And go and check out my webinar if you guys are level 4. I hope you guys enjoy it and it helps you with eclipse season. And I hope you guys enjoy your weekend. For more about me and my work, for my webinars or my courses, or if you want to book a reading, click the links below and head over to beyondtheveiltarot.com. All right, guys, have a good weekend. I will see you all here very soon. Take care.